Justin, Preston, how are you guys?
Good. How are
Good
you?
afternoon.
All right, who's got children? Is that Preston or Justin? I think I know the answer to
Who do you
this one.
think?
How many are we up to now?
The one talking in my mic right now is number 8, and then hey guys, number 9 is on the way. I don't think I announced that last night. I didn't tell you that, Mario crew. Number 9 due in December. It's a Brady Bunch family. Don't get too scared. So it's this will be. I have 6 kids to my name. This will be number 7. My wife has 2 from her previous marriage. We will have 4 altogether. So it's 9 altogether if you're doing the math.
I need to do whatever you're doing for a living because I don't even know how somebody pays for all that. But
You can do the Brady Bunch with just the kids, Justin, because you got the
It
9
pays for
squares.
itself in just the loves and
the
hugs. That's
love.
what you need.
There you go. Things with this story, especially at Preston. I just heard you speaking in another space about this. I've gotten a little bit more intense. It seems to get more intense by the day. It seems like it's a really polarizing issue. So I know we had a decently long space on this yesterday, but geez, I mean, there's been plenty of developments today as well. So just trying to get the panel up here. Just bear with us. All right, there we go. Building out a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Chief, Ben, welcome back. Oh, and Max, too. You're up here, too. And Doc. All right, we're building out quickly. Max is on the freaking front lines of this whole Trump DeSantis war, it seems. So that's.
It was rumored one time that Max and I were the same person. The illustrious, great Rebecca Jones, who is, I think, still criminally indicted. I can't remember where that stands, but
She admitted guilt for the felony. She's out on bail for the stalking charge.
right.
But yeah, she accused me of being a lot of people. She accused me of being like a police chief. She accused me of being like some administrator at her son's school. She accused me of being you. She accused me of being some random guy in Indiana. She accused me of being Christina, of course, but who hasn't been accused of that. And then she accused me of being Dan Goldwasser. Um, so, she's dealing with her stuff.
It seems like she's got a lot on her plate because, I think she is attacking DeSantis constantly.
Well,
Obviously,
she
she's
was.
not on
I
the
mean,
Trump side of things, but
man, we could have a whole space on
The
this. But
whole space is
basically,
on her at one point. Yeah.
it was. I've had many spaces on this as well. Like it all started in May of 2020. I mean, I'm not going to tell the story, but it started in May 2020, and there was this rumor like they fired this person in Florida. The Florida Department of Health fired someone who was revealing that the Department of Health was falsifying COVID data, and like it immediately came out that like it was completely like not true. She was not in any way involved in it, and yet she's like persisted for 3 years claiming she whistle blew something. Then it came out there's all this other criminal stuff, and it's just a whole mess. And this is just like, and then she ran for Congress against Matt Gaetz. Vish can probably speak to that, and she's still she's still pushing the same stuff. She's still pushing. I mean, this is an issue I think that unites the Trump and DeSantis camps because she's smearing Christina as a stalker and smearing Matt Gaetz as a pedophile, and it's all very very ugly stuff from a person who's been involuntarily detained under the Baker Act and arrested 5 times and has all kinds of criminal issues.
she was Baker acted down there in Florida?
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
didn't know
she
that.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been Baker acted. So
Just give a short, because we're going to kick off here in just a second, but I do want to ask, just for our audience, what is exactly, you are from Florida and you're pretty up on this stuff. What is the Baker hack?
I don't remember the exact details. It's. I mean, the short story is that you're involuntarily detained for mental health issues.
It's like a 5150 in California. 3 days hold, then you got to release unless there's two doctors who will testify as to your dangerous condition, and then you can be held longer. That's in California.
Okay. Swayman, you wanna kick off real quick? Because there are a couple other people that I actually want to invite to this panel if we can. So go ahead. Oh,
give me 2 minutes, bro.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. One second, just got a message. Okay, cool. So, Preston, I'll start off with you here because we're seeing the aftermath of what happened with the Babylon Bee being publicly, fired for the accusation is that Gavin, who was the vice president of marketing at the Babylon Bee, was fired, seemingly because he was, very pro-Trump. Seth Dillon, the CEO of the Babylon Bee, said on our space yesterday that he was fired because he was being vulgar. But you have a similar story. You worked for Right Side Broadcasting Network for a while. I believe you were a writer with them. Is this a similar situation, or can they be compared at all?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you seem to be saying that you were fired for being pro or saying things against DeSantis.
Yeah, Preston.
As well.
Preston, just before you answer that, guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So, guys, we have got we have invited a number of people. So, if you're on request, we will bring you up as the show goes on. So, do not worry. Like, if you've been invited, we will.
I can step down, Suleiman. I can step down because you're going to have a lot of,
No, you should stay up because we're going to go into the legal aspect of it as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, nobody panic and start another spaces called Mario Speakers Suck. Okay? Everything goes flowing here. We'll get you up as we can.
Yeah, so we will get you up. If you've been invited, we'll get you up during the show, so that's for sure. So do not worry, just stay on the request button. Sorry, Preston, I did interrupt. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the situations are pretty much exactly alike. I wasn't employed at Right Side Broadcasting. I was an independent contractor, which is what every writer for RSBN is an independent contractor. I was on their schedule to produce content every single week, articles that were op-ed pieces. They knew that I was going. They knew going in. That was the reason they reached out to me, that I was pro-Trump, and that was going to be my angle. And the chief editor called me up one day, and it was 9 a.m. in the morning. Very random though, because I had content going up on Instagram for a long time that was of the same type of tone, that was kind of making fun of DeSantis, playing off the Meatball Ron joke. And I get a call saying that she's worried. This is the chief editor. I'm not gonna. You go look at who that is. And she says, we're worried that if you stay on, you're going to basically pose sort of a problem for us, because Ron's PR team could get a bad sense about RSBN if we have writers that are writing for us that are posting memes about him like you are on your social media. And so basically we're going to have to terminate you. And I said, well, honestly, it feels like you're muzzling me. I'm posting lighthearted stuff. Like if it was super nasty, vulgar, or like, factually unfounded stuff, then that'd be one thing. But like, these are just memes. And she said, sorry, this decision's already been made. You're cut off. Well, then they got a bunch of public backlash for it, just like the Babylon Bee is getting right now. We call that the fall of Babylon. But RSBN got a ton of backlash for it, and they ended up trying to, put out some BS press release and backpedal, just like Seth Dillon's doing right now too. So I think these situations are absolutely comparable. But the real thing that really raises alarm bells here is that, people can say, oh, this is a satire website. They're not bound by the same journalistic integrity that other news outlets are, kind of bound to. That's still not really that true. I think, at least as a consumer of all news, I want to know that whatever news organization I'm reading from, whether it be satire or not, is not being under the table politically fueled by a campaign without me knowing it. And so when I came to find out that, Seth Dillon allegedly comes out with this admission of accepting payments from the DeSantis team and is basically a speechwriting consultant for them, that's pretty alarming for me. And, I think we're in a time right now where you never know what news is true and what news is not true. But we have all the facts, we have all the receipts and the text messages and everything that proves it. And so Babylon B is going down. The Ron DeSantis team is just getting painted every day. I mean, Trump honestly can just kick back in his recliner and drink sweet tea because these people are doing the job for us. They are slandering people. They're trying to take away people's livelihood. And if we do pro DeSantis people in this room, they're going to get up and take the mic and defend, Seth Dillon and Christina Pushaw, who Christina and Jenna Ellis and all the rest of that gang, they are sick individuals because they go after us as in me, Alex Brusowitz, Laura Loomer. They have Newsweek or all these other outlets that they have contacts with do hit pieces on us constantly. So they are sick individuals. The DeSantis campaign is made up of that. And, DeSantis is a user. He used Trump for so long. We all know.
Can you wrap that? Can you help him have him wrap up, please?
Preston,
Yeah,
actually, I want to ask
absolutely.
you if I can ask a question for either Preston and then Chief Trumpster. What about the criticism that people from the kind of the DeSantis guys, or whoever, they're just conservative media are saying that the way you're treating Babylon B is basically cancel culture.
Now
that you're pushing a cancel culture against Babylon B that you guys have criticized so much on the other side. What would you
it's
respond
not
to
cancel culture when an organization or business entity is not representing the values that you feel align with you. If Target, for instance, they constantly promote LGBT and they're the transgender bathroom bullcrap, so I don't shop there. And I encourage other people who share my values not to shop there. And that's not necessarily cancel culture. That's just me sharing with a group of my friends, hey, this group is actively working toward our set of Christian values. We shouldn't support them. That's not really cancel culture. Cancel culture is going after somebody for just purely political purposes. This is a fundamentally immoral and unethical thing to fire somebody in the public square simply over defending their own character and being pro-Trump. That is wrong.
So just to make sure I understand, you think there's a differentiation. You think if it's culturally aligned, that's one issue, and that's fine. So a boycott. But a political, as you say, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like an attack, a hit job against somebody, that's where you draw the line. I just want to make sure I understand. It's a legitimate question.
Yeah, I think if a group or entity does not represent my values and is actively working against my values, people are fully within their right to say, okay, let's not support these guys anymore and do what they did to Bud Light, drain them $6 billion in a week. Yeah, 100%, especially if they're working against Christian values.
I'll say
Max, let me ask you. I want to get you in here real quick. Is it fair to get? Obviously, there have been. It's Christina Pushaw. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Jenna Ellis has taken a lot of heat as well. Is it fair to bring them into this? Is there any sort of link? Where does that information come from?
No, look. The long and short of this is that Gavin acted like a jerk online and then tried to show up his boss and he got fired. And you can say well, they could have handled it internally. Should have been something else. We know that that's what happened because that's what he did all the time. And there are other people who are pro-Trump, pro-DeSantis, anti both of them, and they didn't get fired. It's pretty simple what happened, and I think trying to make this into some grand conspiracy where Christina did something, she didn't do anything. But trying to make it into a grand conspiracy where the DeSantis campaign had something to do with this it's very opportunistic. It's basically just Gavin refusing to take responsibility for his actions.
So,
it's him refusing to take responsibility for his actions. Plus, the added bonus, it's protecting against the downside, which is avoiding responsibility for his actions, and then it's also protecting the upside, which is look at me, I'm fighting for Trump, and I'm fighting against DeSantis, and saying that DeSantis is trying to, blacklist people, kind of like how the Trump campaign is threatening to blacklist anyone who ever worked for DeSantis, which is actually happening, and which AB, who gets paid $35,000 to support Trump, supports. So it is what it is.
Because but the thing you said, the issue is that there's not a clear understanding of what specifically was it that he got fired for.
Well, hold on.
Chief Trumpster, you're trying to do this little like you
Actually,
you dig at like individual things. Like the problem is you have to search for specific things. Like we know what Gavin was doing, and you can like it or you can dislike it. He was the most aggressively like insulting, like aggressively insulting people, and going after in like a very, in his unique way. And you can say that's fine, but he's the one who did it. Like the examples you're looking for, you had to look for them.
Max, you're not again. So I let you finish your point respectfully. I don't think you've let me finish that as of right now. The point I'm trying to make is that no one in this call, I don't think, is denying a private company has the right to do whatever. So you made that point as if anyone in this call is trying to deny that claim, which is, I think, inaccurate or mischaracterization. The issue that I had going into the space yesterday, or how when this whole thing started, was that it seemed selective because he said it was not a volume issue and that he doesn't monitor. He said in the space, I had a transcript. I looked at this yet like this morning. He said that he doesn't monitor his employees and he's not gonna. He didn't have any knowing or knowledge of some of the other things we're talking about. But then said later on that he saw there's 250 tweets or 200 tweets a day or something like that. So the point was there are inconsistencies in what he said publicly, and those are something we should be pointing to. Now, no one here is gonna know what internally it was, if there was any internal problems or not. That's something that Seth and Gavin will have to deal with, and I'm sure that I'm sure Gavin will be retaining counsel or looking at this as anyone probably here would if they're in his situation. And I don't know how far I'll go with that, but um, and whether there's a case for it or not, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe I think Benjamin is more well versed in that, I think. But I think the issue though is from a public stance looking into this, it's selective because he said at one time he doesn't monitor or have any he doesn't monitor these tweets, but then he said he did. He said that it's not a volume issue, but a mean-spirited issue. But then he said later on that it's a pattern issue. And then he played really like very vague word games saying, I didn't fire him actually. I said they removed the Babylon B from his bio. And he also had the word games for like 10 minutes. This I forgot which person it was. I think it was Paul, his name was, trying to go and ask a very simple question, was he fired? And he couldn't give this a straight answer for this. And if we're trying to go with public transparency, I understand there's legal issues here, but from a public look, it just didn't really seem that clear, or concise to me. And it seemed like it's a PR disaster at a
But
bare
you're
minimum.
you're looking at this like a lawyer trying to parse individual like details. It's very simple. Like he became a problem employee, so he got fired. It reminds me of the time that Tech Lead, the prominent YouTube channel, he was talking way too much about his job in big tech and like opining way too much, and he got fired. Compare that to like just a random person who like casually remarks in their job and says similar things, but like no one really notices. They don't get fired. Like
So,
this is if
Max,
we didn't if this was not a political if this was not something that people talked about in politics, like this wouldn't be controversial at
Max,
all.
tell us where's
but
the
And
Max,
it's only
tell
Max,
us
because
where the
it's
Max,
pattern was.
Max,
Tell us where the
Max,
pattern was.
Max, I'm going to ask you a few questions. So just to be clear, I want to start at the beginning. So the argument that Seth made was that this guy was basic, and you've said the same thing, that he was crazy essentially on Twitter. He was being horrible. He was being mean. I mean, I have looked into this, although superficially. So I'd like for you, or because you made the comment as well, and so I'm sure you'll have the evidence to back it up. Like where this guy has been nasty and it's been one way. Because I looked at his tweets with your tweets, and you were basically attacking him. He was attacking you. I think he's fair game, and I don't like this whole thing of like, oh, I can say anything I want to somebody, and that person's not allowed to respond. So I saw his interaction with you, and it was back and forth. You were being quite aggressive. He was being aggressive back in terms of the contentions that were made. I saw his interaction with Jenna Ellis and the same thing. They were being both quite aggressive in the same manner. Like what I mean by that, they weren't being aggressive, but the tone was very similar. What they were using to each other. I saw his, and so essentially he was having a number of interactions with dissenters people. But so that for me, that's so. First of all, question to you is: do you think that's fair game? Like, is it okay for him to basically give people the same energy he's receiving, or when both people are interacting? And the second question is, can you direct it to a situation where he was full on abuse and it was just him being on a full on attack and it wasn't a back and forth with, for example, the dissenters camp?
yeah, I don't know about like you want me to like dig up examples. I'm just on my phone. What I'll say is that it's like if it's a pattern, if it's something that you notice over time, then like you just know. Like there's no other person at the Babylon
But if
Bee
you can,
who is visible.
but if you can provide
Here's
some,
What do you specifically want me to like? You want me to like list
You don't get
examples?
to
yeah,
And
say
this is
that there
like
was a
again,
not
and then
so not list examples, but like, and I wouldn't ask you to make a comprehensive list, especially at like, at this specific moment where you're on the panel. But when you're saying there's a pattern, one normally remembers at least one or two or a few occasions where this guy's done something and it's been him on the attack. Do you get what I mean? And like, for example, your interaction with you and Jenna Ellis, I don't think meets that requirement because it was a back and forth from a political perspective. And what I mean by that is political opponents. You guys are the dissenters camp, he's the Trump camp, and you guys are having a back and forth. I've even seen your interaction with him, and it's always about you basically tagging him and saying, what do you think about this? And him probably doing the same. And so do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I think what you're missing is what Max is trying to. Yeah, what Max is trying to say is this really has nothing to do with like Max doesn't have to justify this in the least, right? The issue is when you're an executive at a company, and I've been there before. When I've been like a chief marketing officer of a company, my tweets go silent on politics. I will lock my account because I know I'm representing the company then. And so all Seth had to do is say this guy is representing the company poorly in any which way. It could be a single tweet and he's gone. And I still don't have the answer whether he was a W-2 or 1099. Unfortunately for Preston,
So in the
Preston
space,
doesn't really have a case.
in the space that Raheem did just before this, they did say he was a W-2. But in terms of, again, Justin, what you're saying it could be a one-off tweet. But the problem is Seth came on yesterday and what he said was it was a pattern of behavior. And he even said, the guy's doing like 250 tweets a day. So it wasn't the one tweet. His argument was a pattern of behavior. And
if my employee is doing 250 tweets a day, I'm firing his butt. Okay.
Well, his employee.
But Suleiman's point. Suleiman's point.
Let Ben. I think Ben should speak.
Suleiman's point, and I'm going to actually counter it, but just to be fair to Suleiman, his point is that it sounds like Seth was engaging in some kind of selective enforcement of rules or saying that Gavin was doing things that other people weren't doing, and perhaps that wasn't the case.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, so the challenge is, let's say that the things Seth said yesterday were true about Gavin, but were also true about other employees. It still doesn't mean that Gavin wasn't employed at will or that he has a legal claim, right? Generally, unless you have a claim of discrimination, you don't have a wrongful termination claim if you're employed at will. So,
Ben, we're going to go on to that. And the reason is I really want structure in this because I feel like I want to cover all the issues. And this is one of the issues we're going to cover. We've got Doc and Benjamin here in terms of the employment aspect. We've got the issue in terms of the reason for the termination. I really want to cover all these issues properly so we can get down to the bottom of it. Because I feel like when we're talking about one thing, then someone brings in like 2 or 3 other things and we don't get to the bottom of it. Because we're looking at what Seth's contention was. So Seth's argument was it was a pattern of behavior and allegedly the guy was doing like 250 tweets a day. I heard Raheem's space, and his argument was that even this interaction that he had with about Christina Pershaw was essentially out of his work hours. But anyway, that's by the by. I want examples if Seth has made that contention and he has given that reason to us of what this pattern of behavior was and an example of it, and the fact that he was being mean. He said he was being mean.
Examples.
Horrible.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the examples. This was not the first time. And again, like, I'm not going to say, like, should he have done it? He knows better than I do. What I'm saying is the reason that it happened was that there's an employee who keeps calling people fat and ugly and insulting them, and his boss told him to stop, and he didn't stop, and he quote tweeted his boss, tried to show him up. And that's the pattern. This happened. And that's it. And whether someone else should have is kind of like just...
That's fine. So your argument isn't a pattern of behavior because even that one where you're talking about being fat or whatever it is, that was a response. They were both having an interaction. I read it. She was being cocky to him. He was being cocky back. I know like people want to attack liberals, but it's all this thing like we become like, thin-skinned when someone's attacking our own people. Essentially, I saw that interaction. I did want to read it. They were both being cocky to each other. Now, maybe Ron DeSantis people have a rule that like women are off limits. You can't, they can say what they want, and they're a bit more liberal. I don't know, but essentially, that was a back and forth. I want examples of where he was attacking someone, and that person, and it was just one way.
Suleiman, quick question,
and then we'll talk about the fact that he quote tweeted Seth Dillon. But Seth's main reason was a pattern of behavior, mean-spiritedness. Sorry, go ahead. Whoever wants to
On
answer.
Twitter specifically, though, Suleiman, just to be clear, was the pattern only about behavior on Twitter, or was Seth actually referencing other things that he didn't go into?
Oh, so the whole thing.
Well, Ben, he did
I
say
wanna.
he did say on Twitter, and just to add, because I did listen to Raheem's space earlier, Max made the contention that these guys have never spoken to him about his behaviors. They've never talked to him about it.
Who
He's
made the
never
contention?
been. Sorry.
I didn't. I don't know what he's. I don't know what
Yeah,
he
yeah.
said to him.
He was never confronted
Say
about it.
wax.
This was out of the Sorry, not Max. Apologies. That Gavin was never approached about it, and he was never ever reprimanded about it. He was actually offered like greater shares in the company, or whatever it is, a percentage, and then this was out of the blue. So thoughts?
Can I say that really quickly? Because the whole thing, it's like the issue is that he said two different things. So we don't know if it's a pattern or not. Because in the very beginning, he said it was not a pattern but a volume. It's not volume issue, but a mean-spirited tweet. And then later on he said it was a pattern. So the whole issue, we don't even know if it's because of the pattern or not. And at one point he said he doesn't monitor employee tweets. Then another time he said that he saw him doing it 250 times. So there's a clear contradiction in what we're saying. This is not some lawyer looking at this. I don't have a legal background or anything, but it's just me, common sense wise, looking at the transcript, looking back at what was said in the spaces, and me being listening to spaces too, and hearing conflicting issues. I'm not going to opine and say there's clearly a legal case for this because I'm not a lawyer. I'll let the people who have actual degrees can talk about that.
Sure.
But
Let me go to Evie about that. Evie, go ahead.
So I got to say something. I know that Gavin, he keeps talking about Seth saying, I want to give you shares. But anybody that is running a business, which I am, understands the way that you want to do business. If you're in marketing and you give your employee a share, it makes them work harder because they're making money with you. It's just common practice in business. Does not mean that Gavin was the best. I'm also not saying that Gavin doesn't do his job, because as far as I know, he probably does, and I've never heard anything about his production. However, the problem that everybody has been going crazy in the past 3 days is we're trying to paint this as a move of DeSantis guys against Trump. It may be, but when we're defending somebody like Gavin Wax, that I personally know the damage he has done to our Republican Party and to the Trump campaign, it's crazy. He started trashing before another person from New York, which I didn't mention by name. And again, he made a mistake by bringing her in when she couldn't even speak and give her side of the story. But the fact is that none of us speak to him in New York. His gala is attended by people that are coming from outside of New York. No one from New York wants to go to his event. The protest of Trump when he was indicted, okay? He did the protest. He came out. He started trashing the chairperson of New York State GOP, Ed Cox, which happened to be the son-in-law of President Nixon, a guy with a lot of money, experience. He has been in the campaign of President Nixon, doing an amazing job. He is the one that flipped 11 seats in New York, which was unheard of, okay? He started trashing him. Where were you? Meanwhile, Trump is best friend with him. And he did amazing in 2020. He ran the whole campaign pretty much for Trump. And you know why we did not show up at the protest? Because of Gavin Wax. And if you guys think that that was a big protest, it was not. There was a lot of anti-protests in there and a lot of media. And that's how he's hiding it. Does he try to do good? Absolutely. Gavin Wax trashes women like crazy. I've seen him said to a former mayor in a county in New York. He was having he was bullying him. And in the end, he goes, now, why don't you go and see your wife get effed? How can you be the chairperson of New York?
Is there any Evie? Is there any evidence of this, or is this all
Yes,
speculation?
I can literally post it
That
in a
seems like
second on my
quite the
Twitter.
charge.
Please, I even have the text message of Raheem, but you know what? I don't want to attack Raheem.
You can
Raheem is
post that. I
absolutely
use the
not my
C word all
problem.
the time. You can post whatever you want.
No, I don't want to
I
do
want
that.
to
I don't.
hold on.
I
I want to jump in. I want to jump in here
Let me
because
just go to 1 second.
I just
Who's speaking?
tweeted.
because this is Vish. I work closely with Gavin in New York. I know Evie. Evie's been to plenty of our parties. She used to love them until she got on Gavin's bad side. I don't want to
Wait,
hear
how
that
did I? How
nobody
did I
wants to
get on
come.
his bad
Nobody
side?
wants to come to our parties. Don't even start with that, Evie. Don't
That's
even
not what
start
she
with
No,
that.
said. That's not what
So
Vish,
she said.
Vish,
all
Vish.
right.
That's a fact. It is a fact.
Secondly, I don't even think that you are the most qualified to talk about whether or not Gavin is or worth his space in New York or not. Clearly, he has the largest club in the country in New York, where a lot of people support what he's doing, and
From
people
outside
all
of New
over
York.
the globe, in New
From
York,
exactly. But
physically
it defeats the
showing up
purpose.
and packing
That
out
is the
rooms in
point.
Manhattan, New York,
That is the point, Vish. That is the
Manhattan.
point.
We're no,
Okay.
Evie, you won't let anybody speak. It's not. Look,
Okay, you can
this
finish
is
and
the
then I'll give you
problem.
my
This
Yeah,
explanation.
no. Let
look
Vish go.
look
Let Vish go, and you can respond.
yeah, look, Evie, you could try to smear Gavin's character as much as you want. The fact of the matter is, Seth did something in a hot-headed moment, and now he got caught with his pants down. But in the previous space with Raheem, Gavin clearly states none of my tweets, neither the volume nor the vulgarity, nothing about my tweets was ever brought up to me, ever. And so that,
But
first
what
of
is the
all,
relevance of that, Vish?
well, because there's no established pattern by Seth to say that there is a pattern of vulgarity or a volume of tweets he has a problem with as his employer. So there is no record of that we're aware of, and Gavin has gone on the record and said that has never happened. So that is the first problem with what Seth is saying. Secondly, then in the previous space, Gavin went on record again and said that there is no social media policy there. He didn't even sign a contract, and he's on a W-2. There is no paperwork that Seth handed him. To me, this really sounds like a hot-headed CEO did something really sloppy, and on the back end, it's all really sloppy, and that's why this is a mess.
Do you
in
mean the
terms of
firing or the
PR.
hiring in the first place? Because
Well,
Gavin only worked there for 4 months.
one begets the other. What, you're gonna have somebody work for you for 4 months without signing a single piece of paper saying that you work for me, and these are the rules? Are you
And
kidding?
why would
What
Gavin
kind
want
of
to work?
professional
If
organization?
but Vish, that's just the
What
thing.
kind of
These criticisms, if these
hold on,
criticisms are true, let's
no,
say
hold on,
they're true, why would
hold
Gavin
on.
want to work there? If the Babylon Bee is such a badly run place,
It's because Gavin made this clear, and it's a very easy reason to understand. The check's cleared. As long as the check's cleared, he was good. He saw it as a startup environment. He treated it like a family. Gentleman's agreement. Shake hands. We do that in New York all the time, and
so he
that's
was
what Gavin
naive?
did.
Is that his position?
This
What
is
the
not.
fuck are you talking
Actually,
about?
this is not Gavin's problem. This is Seth's problem. Seth doesn't have the paperwork. Seth doesn't have a policy in writing that he asked Gavin to adhere to. Seth doesn't really have anything, to my knowledge. And so there's no paperwork backing up any of the claims that Seth is making. There's no correspondence that can back up any of the
They
claims.
Well,
still
it's
haven't
certainly no
And
talked to
one's
what
him.
problem
paperwork
That is
is
here.
why
necessary
that is
exactly?
why his PR is a mess on top of
They
that.
still haven't talked to
That
him.
is why his PR is a mess on top.
Yeah, the thing.
And,
Wait. The thing also.
1 second, 1 second, Chief. Before you get in, let me just bring in Raheem. Raheem, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man.
I listened to some of your space earlier. It was very informative. I know that you hired Gavin after he was essentially, possibly now, we don't even know, fired by that tweet. I mean, what's your thought? First question. I mean, can you hire him? He might not even be fired.
Yeah, I mean, he may not be a free agent. We don't know. But I said to him overnight at dinner yesterday, we went through the whole situation, what happened, what his perspective on it was, what we considered the background of all of this might be, what it might not be. You know, very much the same conversations that you guys have been having. And I said to him, listen, if you want a job, I've got a job for you. So, he was very appreciative of that. I have to say, I've seen some nonsense in my time, but this is the most manifest nonsense I've seen from an employer in maybe ever, right? You just do not fire your employees on social media, no matter what they say. If I have a problem with what my writers tweet, I tell them to their face. I say, hey, some people might get offended at this. Some people might think that. And it's up to you whether or not you want to leave it up. I'm not going to police your Twitter feed, not least when you hire somebody who is known for their political mentality, who is known for their ideology, who is known as being a bit of a brawler and a bruiser in the public arena. And for Seth to turn around and say, oh, we have these policies. Okay, let's see them. Show us the policies. Show us whatever you need to show us to prove that you're not just making this up on the fly. I think this is
It's like no one's business here,
I think
right?
it's a terrible. Well, he made it everyone's business, didn't he? And I think it's a terrible
Is
reflection on
Gavin's
them.
position
Why?
that these policies don't exist? Is Gavin's position that these policies don't exist?
Correct.
Just to be
Matt,
clear, so we know what we're
He went
talking
on the
about.
record and stated that.
there's a
He went on the record and stated that.
there has to be a point that's made here. Like, Gavin could be whatever, whatever bad guy you want to paint him as. But guess what? There still is no evidence that's what he got fired for, because two double standards with what he said in the space. It was inconsistent the entire time around. So it doesn't even matter in that whole conversation. It's like, okay, so one person's saying bad behavior, bad pattern. Seth, the person who employed him, has two different reasons for why he got fired. So there's not consistent part on that. So that's the main
So,
issue.
okay, so let me bring Doc in here real quick, because this is one of the biggest points of contention here. When you see that the line of events here, where Gavin tweeted a little bit of a charged tweet at one of the DeSantis team there, and he ended up getting responded to by the CEO, essentially publicly firing him for that. Although they had no contact before, Seth never followed him on Twitter. Never engaged with any of his tweets. And given everything else we know now, is this something that you would worry about?
He didn't have a contract. Just to add to what Nick said, possibly didn't even have
no
a contract.
So
He signed a W-2. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no. So a couple things here. An employer in normal circumstances, normal course, is advised by the state of Florida. I went and checked to maintain a progressive discipline program. And what does that mean? Well, number one, an employee, when they're hired, should be handed an employee handbook, whether they're an independent contractor, an at-will employee, or a contracted employee. There should be a base understanding from the beginning what the demands of the employment are relative to the employee. From what I've heard, I spent a few minutes in Raheem's space. It seemed to me that what Gavin was saying, there was no what I would call an employee handbook, no prior warning or notice that his behavior was somehow objectionable. The fact that he had 250 tweets, I mean, from my perspective, it seemed like he was being paid to tweet, or at least that was an integral part of his job. So I don't see that being demonstrably problematic. The exchange between Max, Gavin, Christina, and then finally Seth, I don't see anything particularly problematic in that. Not given the context of what Babylon Bee does, which subtly pokes. This is a Seth's assessment. Subtly pokes at both sides. So why rise up as the CEO on Twitter or anywhere else to take a side against an employee who clearly you knew was a Trump supporter? As someone's mentioned, he's only been working there for 4 months, so I'm assuming that his character hasn't changed in the 4 months from the time he was hired to now. Why rise up and take personal offense at that? There's been enough talk. I've been in enough of spaces to where no one has clearly, at least in my mind, delineated that was anything particularly offensive given the context of both Twitter and this company and the people involved. So I looked at this carefully. There's no criminal case here, clearly, right? So is there a tort here? Well, there's two opportunities in my mind for a tort. One's libel and one's slander, because there was written defamation, hypothetically, and there was spoken defamation in the spaces. One, I thought it was very, very silly for an employee, no matter what context, to come on, number one, to make it a public firing. And because that could constitute a hostile working environment. particularly since the working environment is Twitter and social media. So that raises the specter for.
And let me be clear: is that something that say the Babylon Bee could be sued for at that, or any employer
Well,
could be sued for
I,
something along those lines as well?
no, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. And I think Raheem, in his attempt to rescue it, what I would, in my opinion, would be an effective employee for this sort of work. I'm a Trump supporter, so I've seen his work, and I've done similar stuff, and I've crossed the line and become caustic at times, and that's just the nature, in my opinion, of the campaign as it sits right now. These two people are contesting for the same position, and things are going to get hot, and eventually everyone calms down, and we have 2016 in the conflict with Ted Cruz and other candidates. We know what to expect from Trump. So we should know what to expect from employees who are asked to cover Trump or asked to cover DeSantis. So the only question here is in my mind, were there any damages suffered by Seth? There's 5 elements for defamation. The two that are really problematic, if for any sort of lawsuit, whether it be libel or slander, was the statement that Gavin made, was it false? Well, no, it was an opinion. It wasn't a statement of fact. And to the extent that there was any opinion, I think he just insulted Christina Pashaw. And from what I can see, that's the genesis, that's the origin of the motivation for the parties to go at it the way that they did. And there's no, because Raheem hired him, he has no damages. He can't come forward and say, I lost my job, I've got no income, these are my
I haven't.
damages. I lost
Just to be
my.
clear, I haven't actually hired him yet. I said if you need a job, I've got one for
Yeah, I
you.
was going to ask that.
But I
But
don't know what he's paid, so I don't know what it's going to cost.
right, so those are the subtleties behind that. I did hear him say in your space, Raheem, that he doesn't even know that he's been fired. I would suggest to you that it would be an easy walk back for Seth to make, to say, when I told Gavin to take the B out of his bio, that doesn't constitute a termination. At least in my mind, it might be in his, but Raheem's right. We don't know, and I think Gavin made it clear that he doesn't know if he's even fired. So.
I think Seth made it abundantly
But
clear yesterday, though, that he was no longer having Gavin work for the Bee.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then that's the case. But if Seth came out and said, "Oh no, I didn't mean to fire him," then what? We're back to PAX. Okay, and then he's going to quit, right? Because he'd rather work with Raheem, in my
Well,
opinion.
Doc, the issue was yesterday, just sorry to interrupt you, the issue was yesterday, you can essentially see yesterday's space as 2 parts. In the first part, Heather is quite right. He did say, it was obvious that he said basically that I can fire who I want, and he essentially made it quite clear that he'd been fired. But in the second part of the space, when he came back after his break, then he was kind of non-committal, and he was trying to say, like, I'm not like, that tweet may not be a firing. So there was 2 aspects of the space yesterday. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I think it was unfortunate that Seth decided to come public on this. I think it made him look unprofessional. I think it was unprofessional. A number of people, including Justin, who likes DeSantis, I'm assuming would tend toward that side of the equation here, has pointed out that this is shouldn't be problematic. I think it's all going to go away. Frankly, this is just a campaign season,
Do you
and
think it will though, Doc? Like,
well,
I mean, this is like the start of a war between the DeSantis and Trump camp. That's what I see, and like this is like
well, that's
No,
But even on top of that,
that's been going
there
on.
is
That's been going on in other
yeah.
places in other times for a long time. And if there is a war between Trump and DeSantis, it's the war, in my
Well,
opinion,
that's
down in
the
Texas over Ken Paxton and the Bush grandson in the fight over the attorney general spot there. That's Bush versus DeSantis people
crazy
down
war
there.
for
So.
sure. But I think it's this important avenue here, which is to explore, which is as Gavin is leaving, right? He starts dragging down DeSantis, claiming that it was DeSantis who triggered this, right? Like it was
Has DeSantis
Christina
denied it?
Pushaw pulling the
We don't
strings
know
in the
if
back
DeSantis has
end.
done that or not. No one has asked.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
well, Gavin says that
Go ahead.
multiple times on his way out. He says this is a DeSantis hit job. That DeSantis did this. It was a DeSantis hit job. All the people just ganged up on me and got me fired. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, he insulted Christina. Who,
It's definitely, hold on. It's definitely totally true. It's definitely totally true. Look who's carrying the water for Babylon B in this space. It's the same DeSantis reply guys. So, I mean, I don't know why they feel like they
But
need to do the PR on Babylon B,
Vish,
but
if I
it
if
probably
I
makes
wasn't
sense
defending
if
it, it
their
would be an
interests
echo
are aligned.
chamber. It would be an echo. Like, I mean, that you're making an unfalsifiable argument because you basically say like because people are defending it, that means that they're guilty. But if we weren't defending it, then you'd just been being here saying the exact same
It's
thing.
hey,
So
guys, can I respond to
Well,
this for a
well,
minute?
well, it's the same three guys, but I'm just saying it's the same three guys.
that's
Let me
because
let,
that's
let me
because
go
the
back to.
DeSantis campaign's not going to waste their time on this stuff. It's a total sideshow that they had no part in. It's it's like
So you're volunteering?
yeah, I'm volunteering. That's what I've
how
always
how
done.
would you know that to be true, Max?
You're
If you're not,
volunteering for the DeSantis campaign?
how would you
No, I'm
know that?
volunteering to talk in a space.
How would you know that any of that's true? How do you know that DeSantis didn't pick up the phone because Christina was upset and asked Seth to fire him? You don't know that. I don't know that.
The burden of proof is not on
Well,
Max to
that
prove
yeah,
that that
that's
There
did
is
not
no
not
how.
burden of
I
happen.
mean,
proof for
Doc, are
anybody
you a
here.
real
We're all
attorney? Like, that's not
speculating.
how it works.
It's speculation. There's no legal case here.
But even if
Right,
it's
let
not
me
a
go
legal
to.
case, you
Let
can't
me.
ask someone to prove something did not happen.
Yeah, I agree. Evie, I
Well,
agree
you
with you there.
can't claim that
Evie,
it didn't
Thank you.
happen then.
Evie,
Thank,
let me go to
Exactly.
Evie.
Come on.
I'm
thank you
not.
so
I'm
much.
saying bring evidence for the
Can,
claims you make.
hey, guys, can I say a few things?
Yeah.
It's the
You're
same three
missing the
guys.
timeline
Literally the
in
same three
here.
guys.
Gavin Wax first responded to Christina by saying, "What the F is your problem?" Then Seth told him, "What is yours?" Gavin answers back with an attitude, okay, to his boss and said, because Seth said that, oh, well, I have an issue with the way you're speaking. And he goes, well, I have an issue. This is not how you speak to your boss, especially.
So Evie, I'm gonna ask you that actually, and I want to ask Raheem that as well. I mean, maybe I'm different, but when I look at that, I think Gavin was quite nice. If my boss was speaking to me like that, I think I'd be a lot harsher.
That's
But
rude.
well, I'd say his boss was
Yeah,
being rude.
Seth
But
was pretty rude.
let's read it. Yeah,
No,
like
no,
if my boss,
answering,
if my boss,
answering, your boss
let
can be rude, but you cannot answer to somebody that's paying you like that when somebody is
let me
telling you,
Yeah,
I
but
have a
let
problem
me
professionally.
Evie, let me read the text because you've not read them accurately. So let me read it, and then people can make a judgment. So
But
Gavin wrote.
can I finish my
Well,
point
well,
though?
no, because you read the text and you didn't read them in the entirety, and I think that's important. So let me just quickly read it. So Gavin's wrote, "Hey Christina Pershaw, what's your effing problem?" And that's because Christina Pershaw was liking Max's posts, which were accusing him of nefarious actions. And then Seth Dillon, then comes along and says to his employee, someone he's never interacted with, says, "What's yours?" And then in a second message, he says, "Tweeting like this with the B in your bio doesn't work for me." And Gavin then responded in a quote tweet, "Being accused of things that are false, bracket, and criminal, close brackets, doesn't work for me." And then Seth Dillon wrote, "You can take the B out of your bio now." So that's what
No,
happened for
no, no. Then Gavin answered to Jenna Ellis with a very, very ugly tweet telling her you're fat and you have been divorced three
that's a
times.
that's a, that's a
And that,
different
let me, so,
interaction because
you got to let me finish for a
I know,
minute.
but
You
you're
can't
just
just interrupt for
you
everything I'm saying.
that's
I'm
fine, but you're
sorry.
saying false information. But go ahead, I'll correct it.
No, but like this, he spoke very mean to Jenna Ellis, and then Seth said, "Kindly remove the B." I would have done the same. I would have fired. It was for me. It wasn't a fire. It was him telling, "Kindly remove the B so people don't see you work for Babylon B." If I am
Could have
Seth
done that
now, I
privately,
will
huh?
take a legal firing in writing in private and case closed, and that is it. So you have the timeline
Yeah,
wrong.
but if he was so
Yeah,
worried
so
about
that's
people,
incorrect,
wait, wait,
Evie.
wait.
No, let me be clear. So what actually happened was, Evie, and again, this is like this feminist thing where you ignore what the woman said. But both him and Jenna Ellis were having a back and forth. And what was the reason for the reply to Jenna Ellis? I mean, I need to get the tweet up now, but she said something like, "I would never date you" or something. And then he goes, "Well, you're fat" or something. So again, there was a back and forth where she's saying things to him and saying it back. I understand liberals have this idea that basically women can say what they want, and in response, a man's not allowed. But
Evie's point, though, is the timing. Is she right that that happened before Seth said, remove it from your bio now? Or is
yeah,
she
yeah.
wrong?
So the Jenna Ellis and what's his name, Gavin back and forth, as far as I know, happened before. Yeah,
It was before.
yeah.
Or Okay.
Yeah, but Gavin
Can I also
answered the
clarify
So
that like
Seth,
I
Seth
didn't accuse him
responded
of
to that
criminal
second
activity?
text.
I also I want to clarify. I didn't accuse him of criminal activity. I said that his paycheck was paid for by Miles Guo, which is true. So that was that's all I
But
want to
what's
clarify
wrong
on
with
that.
that, though? What is
I
wrong
mean,
with that?
Well,
there's
I'm
a
not.
whole
That's another
conversation about
discussion for
Miles
another
Grow that can be
day.
had.
Again, that was
That's
another
not a
fight
good
that
look.
Max and him had. Yeah. So again, this is the problem you see when people are taking snippets of different arguments. So he had arguments with like 2 or 3 different people at that point, but take snippets of it is highly
Yeah, but if
problematic. I think
Ron
Raheem, sorry, go ahead.
DeSantis takes
Let
money
me go
from
to
people
Raheem.
that funded Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, are you guys going to start calling that
Well,
out too?
Well,
Heather, I
Heather, we'll
mean,
come to that in a
here's what
second. I
happened
don't want
was
to don't
that
divert the point. One
Gavin
second.
told people Gavin told people to bombard me with tweets asking if I get paid by DeSantis or by anything related to DeSantis, and then I said, ask Gavin if he's ever worked for a company, or no, I didn't say. I said Gavin was paid by Miles Guo. Ask him about that, and that was the start of this whole thing. So
Can I ask Max?
Right, let me go
Jason
to
Miller
Raheem.
was the
Raheem,
Can
go
CEO.
I
ahead.
ask Max
Raheem, go ahead.
what was the purpose of you asking him that and posting that stuff about Mars Guo?
what was the purpose? Okay, I mean, what was the purpose of him telling people to ask me the same question over and over again?
Sure,
And
but
answer the question,
you're
Max.
here. You're here, so you can answer. Why did you post that information? What was your motivation?
To
The
get the answer,
motivation was
presumably.
that sure, Ben. Yeah, Ben, you should answer this. Ben, you'd be a good
I,
answer.
I mean, Raheem, I think you and I once met actually on the roof of 3 Columbus Circle at a Getter party when I was working there, and you came,
Yes,
and that office space was Miles Grove's office space.
sure.
So just, by the way, back on in case you
No, I'm not
think you
disputing
recognize me.
that Guo was an investor in Getter or anything. I'm asking Max.
He was the sole
Right,
investor,
whatever.
and
Yes,
Jason
fine,
Miller
whatever.
misled
Okay,
us
this is not about
into
Jason Miller. I'm
thinking that
talking
he was
about
a
Gavin's
minority investor.
employment here. We're talking about what happened with Seth Dillon. We're not talking about Jason Miller and Getter and all of that. I'm asking the question, what was Max's point in posting that information about Gavin, and did he think Gavin was not allowed
Yeah,
to
I'm glad to
respond?
answer. Yeah, I'm glad to answer that. So his purpose in asking me was to try to do this guilt by association, or try to suggest I'm compromised in some way. And then to make a rhetorical point, I said, look, what you're saying is false, but what I'm saying here is true. Doesn't guilt by association suck?
So you posted
Well
purposes of a
said.
criminal case to Gavin to make a juxtaposition over his alleged of your involvement in a
Look,
campaign.
I
Those
am
two
not
things
Max
aren't the
a
Max
same.
didn't Max
the people
Max
deserve
didn't
to know.
accuse Gavin of a crime. He
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
just
asked
accuse him of that.
Gavin
juxtaposed it.
about whether he no, he asked Gavin about whether he had taken money from Miles Guo. Some people have taken money from Miles Guo, not realizing who he was or that he was the sole
Sure,
investor in
sure.
Getter. Okay, so Max asking Gavin if he took money from Miles Guo, either only in relation to working at Getter or otherwise, is not an accusation of a crime. In fact, it can be an accusation of being naive or a victim or simply someone who happened to work
Right,
there.
but it's an
Okay,
accusation, right?
but
You just said it's an accusation.
Ben, have you taken money from Moswell?
I worked at Getter from February
So yes.
22 to September
So yeah,
22. If you go
So
on my
yes, yes, you
profile,
did. That's a yes.
I walked into the FBI's New York field office because Getter had been breaking the law, and I left by choice. In fact, Jason
That's a
Did
Miller,
you
lot of
return your
words to say
money?
yes.
Did you return your salary?
I spent my
Raheem, that's
salary
not
to
the
live,
point. The point is that he
Listen,
accused me
listen.
of being
Here's my
paid,
point. Here's
and
and
why.
I
then I
Here's why I
quit
go
pointed out
down.
without
that
another
he.
job lined
Here's
up.
why I go down this rabbit hole, right? Just to explain the logic of all of this to you, because what you've done is you just used the word, made the accusation. So what you've done is you've made an accusation of Gavin, and you've expected him not to be able to respond to that. At the same
Well,
time,
what's the
No, but that's
accusation?
just the
well,
point,
Ben
Raheem.
just used the word
I think
accusation.
Gavin should have responded.
Yes.
Well, let
What
Raheem finish.
accusation did
Let
I
What
make?
Raheem.
accusation
Let
did I just
Raheem
make?
finish.
Wait,
No, you
how
used the
did
Raheem,
word
let
Getter
accusation.
break?
guys, you need to stop. Let Raheem finish, and then we'll let Ben or Max respond.
I
Max,
mean,
because it's brother. Let me go to Raheem.
thank you. Listen,
Sorry,
listen.
Nick.
I
What are you going to say?
understand everybody's going to get very heated about all of this, but at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is the conflation between a business relationship between Gavin and the Babylon Bee and Gavin's political work, which the Babylon Bee knew him for when he hired them. Right? That's the crux of the matter here. And the Christina Pushaw and the Jenna Ellis and all of the sort of periphery around that is not going to have as great a weight on it as simply this. Did they know, like, he was the Young Republicans chairman? Yes. Did they know he tweeted the things he tweeted? Yes. Was there an employee handbook in place? No. Was he ever given any instructions? No. Was he ever told that his tweets are a problem? No. Was he fired publicly on a Friday night by his employer who has 700,000 Twitter followers? Yes.
Maybe.
Well, exactly. Sorry. Maybe. You're right. Thank you. And that's the case. Like, we all have our political differences here, right? We could scream at each other about all of that all night long. The point of this is it morally correct to behave the way Seth behaved? And my answer to that, honestly, is absolutely not. I would never do it to somebody.
Can I ask you something, Raheem?
Always.
Thank you. Is it okay for the chairperson of New York City Young Republicans to bully constantly, especially women?
Well, that is up for the board, isn't it? That's for the board of the
Yes.
New York Republican Club to decide for themselves.
That's the problem. He controls the board, and nobody else can do anything
You
about
can
it.
say that about any company.
No, he
that,
doesn't
please?
control the board. The board is
Can I
the
please
board
say
is
something?
independent.
But
I sit on
just
the
to
board.
respond to
That's a
Raheem.
lie. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Just to respond to
Respond,
Raheem,
and then I got to
like
pivot just a little bit. Go
Suleiman
ahead.
said.
I'll let you respond real quick.
Yeah. The question
Yes.
about why did Max ask Gavin what his financial relationship was with Getter, it is relevant. If you're president of the New York Young Republicans Club and you're asked, okay, what was your relationship with this person who's now sitting in jail awaiting trial for 11 counts of fraud with a 190-year minimum sentence, while the third co-conspirator is on the lam 3 months later still, if you're the head of the New York Young Republicans Club, you're taking it upon yourself to be in the public light and to be subject to some scrutiny about your political and financial relationships, right? And Max simply asked, what was that relationship? And Gavin never answered. And he could have just killed the whole thing, Gavin, by answering it. Maybe the answer is that there is nothing untoward. And he just was working at Getter, and that's the only time he ever got, paid via Getter before its bank account was, frozen in September in connection with this charges. But the point is, Gavin could have just answered, and he didn't. And that's a big part of the problem.
On that though, that's fine. And I don't think any of us have an issue in terms of the question. But similarly, Gavin has the opportunity to deal with that how he wants. So when Max is making that statement, and clearly he's making it to make an insinuation, although, as you said, Gavin can also answer it. But when he's making it, and then he's seeing people from DeSantis' camp like those tweets.
It's an objective question that you could ask of me too.
Yeah. Ben, you're not letting me finish. So, but when he sees someone like Christina Pershaw start liking those tweets, which are a charged question, it's not out of outside of a vacuum. And so when he sees that, he also has the ability to say to Christina, like, what the fuck's your problem, which is what he did. Then what he shouldn't expect it for his boss to basically jump in on him and attack him as well. So that's the other perspective from it. But
That is a good perspective.
But Nick. One second,
again,
Ben. We'll come to you. Nick, we're going to come back to you. Let me pass it over to Nick.
Nope,
Nick,
keep him going.
Okay. Sorry.
That's a good perspective, Suleiman. But again, if we're all largely conservatives here on this space, I'm making some assumptions.
No, there are DeSantis people here too.
No, but in all seriousness,
because someone kept on talking about how basically a woman can attack a man, but a man can't attack a woman. So maybe there's some liberals.
In all seriousness,
so can I respond to that as a woman? I'm so sick and tired of people acting like people like Jenna and all these other people. They're going around dishing out what they're getting back. So stop making them out to be these female victims.
They're women, Heather. They're women though.
Jenna, I'm a woman, okay? If you're gonna dish something out, even as a woman, be ready to get it back. Some of these women have more testosterone than men, and they're on these social media platforms, literally just poking and poking and poking, and then somebody finally snaps back.
Some of them have
and everyone's
penises
oh,
too.
you said that to a woman, and it's this woman is more vulgar and more rude and disrespectful to everybody else. She's not a Proverbs 31 woman, so stop acting like she's some victim because he defended himself against accusations.
Are you saying conservative mores don't apply if the other person is in the gutter?
Heather,
what's the conservative more?
Can I answer to Heather as a woman?
Yeah, you can answer because if I'm going to put something out there, I'm going to let you respond without being hashtag me too.
Thank you very much. Do you know why I got involved into this? Only because he has been attacking me for years and other women.
That's not because you're a woman, though.
No, it was Raheem.
It's
Absolutely.
equality.
When you
So
call
why isn't he
somebody
attacking
No,
F
it's
all the
word,
women
not.
around him
No, it's
then?
Raheem,
Why is
not.
it just you?
Raheem, no,
Only
stop,
Rosie
stop, stop,
O'Donnell.
Raheem,
It's because
stop.
you're a dumbass.
Does
No,
he hate his
Evie,
Raheem,
mother?
stop
stop.
lying.
This is absolutely wrong. He attacked me because he called an attack the chairwoman of New York City GOP, and it was her that hosted an event for Kristi Noem. So he took me while I was preparing a fundraiser for
What
them
does it have to
because
do with you
I
being a
love
woman?
these
What
guys
does
and I
that
was
have to
helping these
do with you
guys.
being a woman?
It seems like he's equally attacked.
No, it
Okay,
has
so it's
to
not about you
because
being a
Yeah,
woman.
exactly.
he trashes you as a woman, and that's what he used with Jenna Ellis. And
Do
to
you
go
hate him
back to the
because he's a
But
man?
timeline,
Jenna
uh,
Ellis trashes so many people. Can we stop using her as a female
but why
example?
are we
She's a
talking?
terrible role model.
Why can I don't like Jenna Ellis. You don't understand that.
So you're saying that
I
people
do
can
not
attack each
like
other
Jenna
equally. You're
Ellis.
saying that, yeah,
He is
wait.
no joke. I'm no joke. I am part of the Trump campaign. I've never spoken to Jenna in my life, never will. Just so
So
we're clear. This is not about DeSantis. You guys need to understand if we're doing a fight in here to defend Trump, this is Gavin Wax is not it. We need to stop
This is
dealing with
just your
False,
personal
putting everything
animosity,
false.
that
Evie. This is just your personal animosity. You have to let this go. We're
wait,
talking
Exactly.
about the
wait, yeah,
case.
hold on. So all I'm hearing is Gavin
okay.
attacked
All
the man
right.
who's running
So
equally.
just guys,
Let it go.
1 second, guys. Look, I'm gonna read Jenna's tweet out to him because again, this is being framed in a specific manner. So Jenna says to him, "Enough to know that I don't want to date you." Right? So she attacks him, saying like, "Basically, I
In
don't want to date
response
you."
to what?
To what?
So
Yeah, read before.
yeah, okay, I'll read before. That's fine. Oops. Right. Okay, so let's go even more further back. So what happens is okay, so Jenna Ellis starts and says not so yeah, Jenna Ellis actually attacks him first. So he says, "Hey, Christina, what's your effing
On
problem?"
brand.
Yeah, and then Jenna Ellis comes in, and obviously women are allowed to. Not even 48 hours since Pressure has been unleashed to fact check lies about DeSantis, and she's already broke Gavin. Maybe calm down and take a break, my dude. Not a good look for you or the Trump camp. And then Hero, what do you know about good looks? Also, I'm on the campaign. You guys are like an insufferable little clique. And then Shiro, enough to know I don't want to date you. You've endorsed Trump. You don't have to be on the campaign to reflect poorly on your candidate or lash out at the people for doing their job, speaking their
Pa-
opinion, or supporting their preferred candidate.
Pause right
Grow up.
there.
And then sorry. And then he finally responded. So after he said about date you, then he responded, "I'm happily dating Chelsea. I have no interest in an overweight thrice divorcee. Strange reply for you, but I guess every weird loser is coalescing around the DeSantis camp." So you can see there is a back and forth. They both say mean things to each other, and you have a scenario where Jenna Ellis attacked first. But let me
Wait,
go to
no,
Nick. Let
Suleiman.
me go to
Who?
Nick first. I'm gonna go. We are gonna. We're not.
On
Ben.
brand.
Yeah,
We're gonna come back onto this, Ben. Don't worry. This is like we're gonna talk about, but we've got
absolutely.
Nick.
We're going
Let
to
me
be
go
talking
to
about
Nick.
this for hours now, but I do want to bring in, we have Congressman George Santos up on stage actually right now. I think it's your first time on stage,
Base.
and so we appreciate you coming by, but you've actually, we met each other, actually, I'm sure you don't remember it. I was at an New York Young Republicans Club meeting not too long ago, and you're actually pretty deeply involved in there as a New York congressman. So I'd love to bring you in and have you sort of give your synopsis on the situation and how you think this is going to play out.
Well, thanks for having me, Nick. I do not remember, as you said. Sorry about that. But I want to say this because there's so many people on the stage that I know, and whether I know in person or I follow or whatever. But the reality is this is my outlook at this. We are wasting way too much time fighting each other, and the Democrats are getting a pass, a free pass. The enemy is Joe Biden, not Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. I happen to be a Trump supporter. Evie and I, we go way back. You know, we've had our differences, but you know, we put them aside, and we're adults. The way I'm looking at this personally is very simple. I think that whether Gavin was right or wrong, whether Seth was right or wrong, I don't think this benefits the movement at all. Look, I'll share this with you guys. I drove from DC to New York, and for at least 3.5 hours of that drive yesterday, I was listening to a space moderated by you guys about this topic. And then there was
Is that actually true? Did you actually do that?
Yeah, that's very true for whoever asked that. So, and then on top of that, you guys, there was a spin-off space earlier today with Raheem, and then there's a space again about the same topic. this is going to play out whichever way it plays out. If Gavin sues Seth or whatever, I mean, we're hearing all these things, but we have no control over this. I think we should just get this energy and use it to campaign. Whether you support DeSantis, great governor, I don't necessarily support him for president, but if he becomes that nominee, I'll support him. Right, I will go out and door knock or whatever it is that's asked of me to do for any GOP nominee, because at the end of the day, the energy that we're putting into this trivial nonsense, is going to cost us at the end. I mean, look, we can all agree nobody's going to say it. Nobody's proud of all of their conduct their entire life. Everybody makes mistakes. Now, whether you guys agree or disagree, that's whatever. The reality here is, I don't see where Gavin did anything that Gavin hasn't done on Twitter in the last forever that I've known Gavin. It was pretty consistent with Gavin's behavior. Now, it is Seth's discretion to do whatever he wants. I do believe it comes a little bit weak when you're saying, I heard Seth contradict himself at least 3 or 4 times, saying it was pattern, it was volume, it was in volume, it was pattern, it was quality of content. So it was just like all over the place. I don't care. I don't own the Bee. I don't work at the Bee. But the reality is the amount of energy introjected into this topic now, it could be better applied. There's a lot of talented people up here. There's a lot of really capable people up here that can be doing a lot better with their time, whether it's for Trump or for DeSantis. So that's just my piece. I don't have a horse in the race other than, 45 will be 47. And I'm sorry for the DeSantis supporters. I just don't see a path for Ron right now.
Can I say one sentence only?
Yeah, go ahead, Evie.
George said it the best, that in the end of the day, this is a war that shouldn't have happened. You guys are dragging it, and in the end of the day, if DeSantis wins the primary, what is everybody going to do? Just stay home? No, we're not going to stay home. Unfortunately, we're going to have to support him and make sure that we win 2024. So this game about Gavin being attacked unfairly, fired, we got to stop it. That's the whole point. Why I jumped into this.
I
and
disagree,
I didn't want to do it.
Evie. I don't know you. I respect you. I respect your opinion.
1 second. I'm just going to ask some questions to Congressman Santos, and please do go ahead. Congressman Santos, I mean, we've got you on here, and we do appreciate your comments in terms of this specific incident. Generally speaking, obviously, some people in the audience, we've got you on the space, so it is an opportunity to ask you some questions. I mean, in terms of, I know you pleaded not guilty to the federal indictment. What do you think about that case against you?
Soleimani, this space is not for me to go address my indictment. I've been indicted, not convicted. I'm not discussing my legal case, period. So if this is a way for you to pivot as a journalist to try to get questions in, I mean, it's not space. I came up here to voice my opinion on the topic of the room, and that's it. This isn't about me. This is about the movement. I'm here to literally weigh in on where I think the energy should be used. This is war. This is political warfare, and we should be fighting against our enemies. Our enemies are the liberal Democrats destroying our country. Our enemies are the people trying to shove $4 trillion down the American people's throat on an increase in debt. That is what we're up against. Now, if you want to turn this around and ask me trivial questions, you should send them into my attorney, and he might give you an answer.
George,
that's not what I'm here for.
With all due respect, and I understand what you're saying because I've echoed that sentiment plenty of times. Part of the issue here is that this war that's being waged, we believe is happening due in part to DeSantis staffers and people within his camp spending money and sending money to call in political favors among the right, which sows dissension and causes things like this to go down.
Malcolm.
Look, hold on, Malcolm. I will give you credit. I don't disagree with you. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I believe that this is being played on, period, point blank of this is 2016 on steroids. Look, and I make fun of Gavin a lot on this, and this is not an attack at Gavin. I'm like, Gavin was on the Ted Cruz campaign in 16, and I was a Trump supporter when Republicans made fun of me in New York State for being a Trump supporter in 15 because he was a joke, he was wasting our time, whatever and whatnot. I was there for him. I was there for him in 2020, and I'm there for him again in 2024. But that doesn't make anybody who supported Cruz or who supports DeSantis bad people. I just don't like the tactics that the DeSantis camp is taking at this point, because I know it's a lot of backroom-ended, conniving, stabbing deals that are taking place. I'm not blind or oblivious to it, but the more oxygen you give to it and the more time you give to it, you give it more power and more energy. Like, he can call and do whatever he wants, right? But if you're not giving it oxygen, it doesn't happen.
Very
It doesn't
true.
manifest. So it's the power of manifestation. It's the law of attraction. If you allow that to become truth, you're going to attract it to you, and it's just going to become true, and you're going to give it power.
Yeah, but I think it's
You just
bringing a lot of people out of the woodworks, which is why I don't think this is a waste of energy, because it's bringing those people, those nasty, vicious, vile people on the DeSantis side who do want to ruin someone's entire career, take away their livelihood. It's showing.
This is
No, hold
nonsense.
on. Let me
Preston,
finish what I'm
Preston,
saying. You always interrupt
Preston,
me.
give it a brief.
No, they want to ruin someone's livelihood and ability to provide for themselves, and that
No,
is
we
the
don't.
kind of thing that
It's silly.
Can you
It's
shut up? Can
unfounded.
you shut up?
It's
That's
Well,
No,
ridiculous.
the
it's really
question is,
not.
okay, real quick. The question is whether or not you believe that these people will mobilize at some point should Trump get the nomination to turn tail or not.
Are you
That's
kidding? Of
really the
course.
question.
Look, I said this yesterday. I'm old enough to remember when John Cardillo, which is somebody I like, was criticizing DeSantis on Twitter. And he has an option to change his opinion, and that's fine, right? I remember a time, 2021 CPAC in Orlando, or wherever it was. I think it was 2021 in Orlando, where most of the people in this room were all happy together because we were all Team MAGA America first.
Was that before your mom died on 9/11?
DeSantis is a product. DeSantis is a product of Donald Trump, whether anybody agrees or disagrees. He is. He
I
is.
mean, yes, and that's the case. So, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make here is that the people who are playing this up, because like it or not, Babylon B is an important force in this culture war, basically in this political space. That sometimes people only see glimpses of, what's going on in the political war because of the Babylon B. And if they're in the bag for a political, for a campaign for DeSantis, and they're not disclosing it, and they're basically axing figures and creating a chilling effect based on the money that they're getting from that campaign, it's going to have some huge consequences. So I
Malcolm, who are
think
you
having this
accusing?
out in the air is important.
Who are you accusing of being paid, Malcolm?
But
I'm
Malcolm, look,
accusing people
Malcolm,
on the DeSantis.
Malcolm.
Okay,
Here's
But
what
go
I'll
who?
say
ahead.
to you.
Who?
Specifically, are you
How?
accusing?
What you're saying? Look, I don't know that to be true. That the Babylon B is receiving
They
payments as
are.
of now, but there. Hold up, time out. There's going to be a quarterly filing, and on July 15th, we'll all see it. Right? As of now, nothing's been disclosed. They're not legally obliged to disclose if they're receiving anything right now, right? But July 15th, when the federal FEC deadlines are due, we'll all go ahead and we'll comb and we'll call their bullshit out, and we'll say, "Oh, look, you lied to everybody," and that's gonna take a toll on their
Very true.
subscription base, and then there will be light shed on there. Nothing that's done in the political realm is kept in the dark for too long, right?
Well,
So
and also the Babylon B, like that was disclosed. I mean, people keep cropping out the dates. Who knows why they're
In
doing that?
2021.
It was
2021.
disclosed in
I
2021.
saw
It was
it.
list
Yeah,
rental.
that was an old expenditure that a lot of people do. A lot of campaigns engage in. It's whatever. My point here.
That's not right, Congressman Santos, because yesterday
Yep.
someone did provide the receipts. There was actually payments up until late 2022 from a donation perspective.
Yeah,
Laura Loomer provided those.
Yeah,
Hold
she
on.
did
All
provide
right,
it.
but was
And
this
there was funds.
directly from the campaign to
So there was
Babylon B?
Yes, and Seth
so
admitted
there was
to.
in March 2022. Again, this is from the top of my head. In March 2022, there was payments made to Babylon B. In October or November 2022, there was payments
donation.
made from Seth Dillon to the DeSantis.
That's why
camp.
it's stupid that we're even having this
Can you put it on the
conversation,
Jumbotron, please?
because clearly they've given money and they're
I'm
getting
confused.
kickbacks
Soleimani. Hold on, Soleimani. Are you saying Seth Dillon paid the DeSantis campaign? I'm not following.
Yeah,
the
Seth
donation
Dillon
of
paid
$40,000
$40,000 within the last 6 months. The DeSantis PAC that was renamed according to Laura Loomer. So was it back in October of 2022? The receipts she provided showed that Seth gave $40,000 to
Yeah,
the
but that's
DeSantis
for
PAC.
mayor's campaign, guys. That is
But
for
that
mayor's
sounds like a
campaign,
swap to
October
me.
2022.
But hold on. But why
Well,
would
like,
Seth pay the PAC and not the PAC pay Seth? I'm not understanding. Is he
well, so
donating
the
to the
PAC,
PAC?
he did
they
actually
did.
admit to receiving money from them as well. And one of the things Laura said she was going to release was text messages basically from Seth admitting that he was hired by the DeSantis people to quote unquote write what is it? Write
speechwriter and
speeches
consultant.
or
Speeches. Yeah.
So
He
yeah,
tried
I
doing
heard her
speech
say that.
writing.
Did she release those already?
The
so
simp's
let
very
me
quiet right now.
let me explain. So Congressman Santos, it's Suleiman. So in terms of yesterday, so there was two types of payments. The first was payments made to Babylon B, and that happened as late as March 2022 at least. And Laura Loomer did provide me with the text messages which corroborate that they were for speech writing. In terms of separate to that, Seth Dillon himself donated $40,000 as late as October 2022. All of this is public information.
That's fine. So
He
Seth
he
Seth is a
donated to the governor's like. I mean, Seth was on here for how long last night? He said he supported the election of Trump in 2020 and he's the election of DeSantis in 2022. The fact that he donated, like, this is so silly. He donated
Max.
to a
So
No,
governor's
real quick,
campaign
Max,
in
and I'll
Max.
make your
But
point.
here's
2022.
Hold on, Malcolm. Give me 1 second, just real quick. So there's a donation of $40,000 from Seth Dillon to the DeSantis camp in 2022 in the third quarter. Is that what I understood? Soleimani, is that your claim?
That's what Seth, like, I can
Yeah,
answer
there's
it.
four.
I heard
One
him say
second,
it.
Mark.
So
There's
that's very simple.
$40,000 from as a
DeSantis,
donation.
yeah, but DeSantis was on the ballot for governor, so a donor gave him money. I don't see this as problematic, guys. The election was in November of
The
2020.
problem is that you have Laura Loomer, who just hates DeSantis, and so anything that anyone has ever said positively about DeSantis makes suspect. I mean, this is someone who accused Casey DeSantis of lying about cancer and accused Ron DeSantis of murdering his sister. Like, we need to not take Laura Loomer
Laura,
No,
seriously.
Max.
No. Look,
Max.
Laura's
look,
Yes, she
on
we
did.
can't.
Casey's
Yes, she
side.
did.
But
Okay,
Max,
real quick,
look, we
real quick,
can't just
circle back.
discredit Laura just because Look, if we're, I don't know that to be true that she accused him of killing her sister. I've never heard that. This is the first I hear it. But Laura's been right on a lot of stuff. And look, and Laura's no
Mhm.
fan of mine, and she's attacked me plenty, which is fine. But what I'm trying to say is here, she's been right on a lot of things.
Yeah.
She's called people on their bullshit a lot of times. So we can't just discredit her point blank, right? We need to give credit where credit is due. Now,
She discredits herself easily
what I'm
every day. So
Okay, Justin. Bar aside, that
Dude,
was a witty
So
finger.
Seth.
Go ahead.
if
sorry, 1 second, 1 second. Congressman Santos, one thing about Twitter Spaces is it's an open forum, so we do appreciate you coming on here. We had Congressman we had Matt Gaze on here, and he essentially was asked a questions from a variety of people, both conservatives and liberals. They were very potent questions, and that's the reason for the Twitter Spaces. So we do appreciate you being on here to receive questions from people. One of the things that was mentioned on this space,
Well,
and I do
hold on.
want
Before they do that, sorry, man. I just want to mention everybody. If you do have a question or a comment for Congressman Santos, put it down there in the bottom right hand corner, and I'll be going through them shortly. And so let me go ahead and take back over.
Yeah, one thing that was mentioned on the space, and it will be played back on the recording, so I do want to give you an opportunity to respond this about a well-known accusation about your comment about your mother dying on 9/11. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Look, I never look. I'm going to answer this once and that's it. And I've answered this in the media before. I never said my mom died on 9/11. I never said the words "my mother died on 9/11." Period. Those words never came out of my mouth. And I'm just going to move on from that because whatever the media twists and turns, there was a comment in a tweet of somebody making fun of 9/11, and I said the event of 9/11 claimed my mother's life, but it wasn't that she died on 9/11. My mother died in December of 2016, and that's very openly public record. But again, I'm not going to get into the trivial nonsense of this. My point being here is this is about 2024. This is about the presidency of the United States. This is about Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, which I happen to support Ron DeSantis as a governor for Florida, where I think he is much needed, and where I happen to support Donald Trump to go ahead and actually show the American people he not only won 2020, but he's going to win 2024 again and settle the score once and for all. Because if there's ever been a president with buyer's remorse attached to their name, it is Joseph R. Biden. Period. The American people say it. CNN can't get a poll that proves otherwise, and that's CNN. So the reality is we need to focus all this nonsense energy, all this amount of brain trust that's in this room right now, which is probably some of the most brilliant people out there politically, and work on making that the goal. Whether you believe Ron DeSantis is the guy, you should work on that and not work on fighting your peers, because After the primary is over, we're all going to have to work together. That's just how the nature is. And the sad part is, most of you guys all in are fighting with each other. You're all friends. You're just disagreeing on this one, and you're making it a blood feud for no absolute reason.
The issue is though,
Hey,
Congressman,
Santos.
this is a major issue because when you look at who's going to get elected, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, there is going to be some differences in policy and so on and so forth. My question to you is, we saw the announcement of DeSantis recently on Twitter Spaces. What was your thoughts about how he came across in the announcement
It was abysmal.
and him announcing on Twitter Spaces? Sorry, go ahead.
Look, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to cater to a younger audience, which is smart, right? He was trying to cater to a social media audience, which is very smart on his part. But the execution of it was terrible. Then you put yourself in a Twitter space with two billionaires, and one of the billionaires makes it about him, Elon, who happens to own the platform. Right. And then he in mid space says, "Oh, sorry, guys, we had to bring David on because I just couldn't do it on my platform because it just drove way too much interest." Meaning the 600,000 plus people who joined the original space weren't there for DeSantis. They were there for Elon. That's what I understood from Elon's interpretation of that. So the reality is DeSantis could have done this in a much better way, cleaner way. It would have been a lot better. I understand what he was trying to do. I don't necessarily think it landed. It was glitchy. It was delayed, all of these other issues. But at the end of the day, look, he thinks he's doing the best he can and he's fighting as strong as he can to get the nomination. God bless him. He's a Republican. As Ronald Reagan said, "Thou shalt not speak ill of your Republican," because once they if they become the nominee, then you don't want to make it difficult for you to have to support them, right? So, and I'm paraphrasing, not quoting exactly, but the reality here is, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. We need a shift of energy here and just forget about this massive divisiveness that's taking place. Dude, I've never seen a primary so early, so divisive like this one right now. And it's really toxic. And I'm just going to put it out there. It's coming, in my opinion, mainly from Team DeSantis, but I'm not going to say that Team Trump guys are also innocent. But the attackers have been for months now Team DeSantis. That's how I view it, Max. You can disagree. That's how I'm looking at it.
I wanted to add one thing.
Would you
question.
say when it was 3 days before the 2022 elections, and the President Trump was doing a rally in Pennsylvania that was ostensibly for Dr. Oz and Doug Mastriano, was it appropriate for him to attack the governor of Florida who was running for re-election in 3 days?
Absolutely not. And I criticized him then. I thought it was stupid. Why would you?
And when was the first time that Governor DeSantis attacked Trump?
I'm not saying Governor DeSantis. I didn't. Let me make sure I make that clear. I'm not saying this is Trump or DeSantis. And Trump did attack DeSantis when he said something to the long of porn stars or something like that earlier this year. He did throw shade at Trump at that point. So let's not act like DeSantis is squishy clean here, because he does throw a lot of shade.
I think part. I think, by the way, love your work, Santos, and I'm very I'm awesome. Happy to have you on the space. It's great. But I think the issue though, with what I saw though, with I guess the whole DeSantis issue was just the action of Babylon B and I guess selective enforcement. And when you see someone who is a Trump person, not a Trump personality, but says pro-Trump things on Twitter, who tries defending himself from a person within the DeSantis camp and gets his position taken away, that kind of sparked a lot of I guess concern about that. And it kind of, for public people who don't know internal information or anything, kind of looked like a blatant, kind of like attack that was unjust. Right.
No, look, the optics of it was terrible. The perception of it was terrible. Seth is going to have to do a whole lot of PR, crisis PR, in my opinion, right? It didn't look good. It didn't look good. And quite frankly, I joked, and Vish is here. I joked to Vish. I'm like, hey, Gavin is probably holds the record of the first person to ever be fired on Twitter, which I thought was pretty
funny,
crazy.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at him. I'm just laughing at the fact that I think he was the first person ever to be fired on Twitter, which sucks, But I guess you raise to that level of a visible profile that happens. But the reality is, I think that the whole thing was poorly conducted. But again, I think Seth said it better. This is a matter of a private employer making a decision about his company. Now, the optics of it, there are going to be repercussions, and I think Seth is going to have to work really hard to draw distinct, clear lines and make sure that he is forthcoming with any involvement he has in the DeSantis camp to make sure that when those filings on July 15 come out on the FEC website, don't reveal anything that corroborate that this could have well been a political attack or a canceling or a silencing of a political opposition. So that's just, that's all I can say. I don't know anything. I have no horse in the game, and I just wish everybody well. And I don't want to see the Babylon Bee canceled. I don't want to see Gavin canceled. I just, quite frankly, want to see us as conservatives just, fighting this on policy. Look, Trump put out probably some of the most competitive Republican conservative policies for his 2024 elections. The guy wants to create 6 new freaking cities in the country, and I think DeSantis had a big opportunity. And one of my biggest criticism of his announcement was the border is broken. The border is bad. I will fix that. Day one. Okay, how will you fix that was what he missed, right? I didn't get a what will you do different policy-wise to fix the border. I've been to the border multiple times, and I've seen how shit of a place it is and the humanitarian crisis that's taking place down there. I don't and I get clocked a lot from people when I say I speak in a humane way about migrants. I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, yeah, I get it. Most people don't want them here on the Conservative Party, and I get that. It's an invasion of our sovereignty. But these are human beings. I don't like turning on the TV and seeing a box truck full of people killed because they were being smuggled, or moms and babies floating upside down in the Rio Grande. That's a tragedy. Every life lost is a tragedy, period. Right? So this is a policy issue that DeSantis could have built his entire campaign on and outsmarted Trump based on good policies, and he failed. And that's why I believe Trump still, with his old policies, if he puts them all back into effect, and if we keep Congress, we will have a better protected border. Now, that's my opinion, subject to interpretation of everyone else who heard his announcement, which, again, I know the talking points. Trust me, I have to dish them out every day. I'm in Congress. But
Congressman, actually, can I ask you a question specifically on the border? And then there's another political question, because I'm somebody who covers extensively cartels, and I know in the Republican debate there's a lot of discussion of viewing cartels as a national security threat. Would you vote for an authorization of military force against the cartel? And what do you believe the Republican nominee's position should be on that? And then the second question I have on the political side is, if DeSantis is the nominee, we've heard a lot of Trump supporters say they would not vote for him, or they're very hesitant to even publicly announce supporting him if he's the nominee. How do you view your role in trying to bridge that gap based on what you said earlier?
Well, look, what I'll say is on the cartels, I've put a bill on I've introduced a bill to designate them terrorist organizations to expand the scope of the FBI and our intelligence and our military in order to tackle the cartels. Because if you designate them a terrorist organization, you just expand and you broaden the scope of action that can be taken against them. And this is exactly what they are. They're terrorist organizations themselves in all of Latin and South and Central America. On the latter question is, if DeSantis, by some holy Mary of a miracle, and if they try to Bernie Sanders DeSantis into the nominee, which I highly see impossible on our side of the aisle, based on the pollings right now and the numbers, I know the primary is a long time away, and polls right now are just a snapshot of how people feel now. I get that. But if DeSantis becomes the nominee, of course I'm going to support him. Of course I'm going to work as hard as I can to sway people into, hey, look, Trump fought it fair and square. It just didn't land for him. And this is our guy, and we're going to have to vote for him, because not voting for him, the alternative is you're reelecting Joe fucking Biden. That's what you need to look at this. That's the way you need to look at it. That is exactly what happens. If you don't elect a Republican, you get 4 more years of the destructive Biden administration agenda, with hyena Kamala Harris laughing at everything uncontrollably and doing absolutely nothing from the standpoint of the Vice President of the United States. This is exactly what we're up against. This is political war. This is war for the survival of this country. Period.
Congressman Santos, I wanted to ask you about your re-election prospects in 2024 and whether you're speaking to Trump, or he's basically endorsing you, and why you've not received support from the House Republican caucus.
Well, look, let's put it this way, Soleimani. So is it I'm sorry, am I mispronouncing your name?
Yeah, no worries. A lot of Republicans do it. It's Suleiman.
Sorry about that. So Suleiman, I I got to Congress on my own accords. I didn't get to Congress with the help of special interests. I didn't get to Congress with the help of super PACs. I didn't get to Congress with the help of the CLF or any of that. Right? I raised hard dollars into the campaign and got elected. Period. I'll do it again. And I'll continuously do it again, because then that means I don't have a price tag hanging off my ear that every time something needs to be done, they go and say, hey, remember this price tag? You have to do this for us. So I owe nobody any favors. So I'll continue to run for office that way. I am a man of agency, and I am able to take the votes that I want to take, that I believe reflect my beliefs and the beliefs that my constituents want, and which is conservative. You know, they had for 20 years Democrats representing the 3rd District of New York. I ran on an agenda that called abortion barbaric, and I got elected, and I swung a Biden plus 10 seat, and I won it by 8.5. So enough of the, Santos sits in a 10 plus Biden seat. No, I sit in an 8.5, 18.5 swing Santos seat. So I will vote conservative through and through on what I believe is best for our country, and I will run for re-election on those same parameters.
Do you have any comment on what's pinned to the top of this chat
I don't know what's pinned to the top of this chat.
about your support of Miles Guo, Vish, and New York Young Republicans and Gavin Wax, and sort of the interrelations between those things? If you don't have a comment on it, that's fine. But I wanted to put it on top here so people can see what I'm asking you, and so you can.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
It's too high school for your consideration. It's not serious.
I don't see it. Where is it?
I'll just ask the question. It's pinned to the top of the chat, but you might not be able to see it. So, Congressman Santos, basically, my question is, you've come out as saying that the U.S. government should free Miles Guo, who was arrested on $1 billion of frauds, and you haven't commented on that.
Sure,
in this
I'll
chat.
comment on that for you real quick, Ben. Here's the reality: Miles Guo is being held, and this is. I'm not saying Miles Guo is innocent, right? I've never met Miles Guo, period. So but I had enough constituents come into my office, and I represent the district that has a 17% Asian American constituency. I had enough constituents come into my office to make this a stink, and to write letters, and to go on my website and leave official communication. We looked into the issue. My point here is not, I'm not defending Miles Guo. I'm not the judge. I'm not the jury. I don't make that decision. But he's being held on no bail for a white collar crime because he's a flight risk. But it's very hard for me to accept that when 2 CCP agents operating on an illegal police station inside of New York City were released on $25,000 bail each when they're active. They're acting.
Congressman Santos, one of the co-conspirators who was also charged, has been running from the U.S. government for over 2 months. They were charged March 15th. It's now May 28th. William G., last name spelled J-E, was charged at the same time as Miles Guo, and he has not been seen in nearly 3 months. That's why Miles Guo is a flight risk, because they are co-conspirators and one of them is missing.
Okay, so you're saying that Miles Guo is now responsible for another individual's actions?
They were joint co-conspirators, jointly charged with 11 of the same 12 crimes.
But you're making an affirmation. He hasn't been convicted of that. These are indictments, are mere formal accusations. And
understood. But at the same time, requesting bail on this number of charges.
Ben, let him answer. Sorry, go ahead, Congressman.
Ben, you cannot expect someone else to be held at the same standards because of another individual's poor choices and personal actions.
That's not the only reason that Miles Guo was denied bail. The government put out, I think, a 20-page letter explaining its decision to not have him freed on bail.
And track him.
Right, just before we let Congressman
He's Bernie Madoff after he was charged, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, so just before we let Congressman Santos go, we do appreciate your time. One last question while we had was, we're seeing that there's basically some form of agreement in terms of the debt deal. There is a number of Republicans who have concerns about the parameters of that deal, and they feel like maybe McCarthy sold out. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Look, I'm not gonna criticize the deal. I have not finished reading the bill. The bill text is expansive and elaborate, and it's all about interpretation and reading it. I will have a position on it once I'm done with it. I will say this: after the call yesterday, I was not very satisfied that it seemed that we made most of the concessions, but I could be wrong. I could have misunderstood what was being sold to me during the call, but I want to make a responsible, essentially, assessment of this, and I'll address everybody on this later in the week when we're done and I've made my decision. Look, just I wasn't happy with the original bill, and I didn't think it was conservative enough when we voted on it. But I voted for that bill last minute to give the speaker the ability to go to the table and remind Joe Biden, we're negotiating. You have no option, right? So for it to come back and it feels a little lopsided, like we're not really getting anything out of it. I don't know. I want to read it. Look, I'm happy work requirements are there. That was one of the first things that I dug my heels in, and I said, look, work requirements have to come back, period. And that's a Democrat policy from Bill Clinton. So I'm not going to even go expand too much on that. But I will definitely follow up, and you guys will see updates on Twitter or wherever the updates end up. But with that said, I want to thank you guys for letting me join the space. I just want to put this very clear. DeSantis is not my enemy. He's my adversary in a primary, and I will treat him and his camp that way respectfully. Respectfully speaking, I think policy is what's going to win this, and I think Trump's on the winning side of the policy because he's done this for 4 years. He has the experience, and he knows what he's doing. He can do it again. He ran this country like a business. I think DeSantis runs Florida well like a politician. I think he should just take a seat and perhaps work with POTUS, who gave him the ability to be governor of Florida, because without Trump, there would be no Governor Ron DeSantis. And anybody who disagrees with that is just being a hypocrite and not accepting the facts. Those are facts. And I think DeSantis is a great guy. I don't dislike the man. I think his wife is stellar. Whichever way we end up, we go back to having a fabulous first lady again, whether it's Casey DeSantis or Melania Trump. So with that said, I want to thank you all. And just remember, you're all on the same side and you're all friends at the end of the day. And you're going to live to regret a lot of the things you guys are going back and forth about. But thank you very much, everybody.
So, Congressman, thank you so much for coming up. We do appreciate that. I do want to tell the audience real quick, Soleiman, Mario, and I will be doing a short, small personal space for subscribers only to Mario directly after this space. We're going to have audience members up on stage, not people that have been pre-invited or anything like that, because we want to be able to talk to you guys. And we might start doing a short one after every space that we do. So, but we're going to try it out a little bit, and we encourage you to come. You got to click on Mario's profile and hit that subscribe button. It's only $1, right? Because Mario set the wrong price on accident. So may as well take advantage of it before he figures out how to lift the price. I'm going to pivot just a little bit now.
You've also subscribed, haven't you, Nick?
I did subscribe. Yep. I've been waiting. We crowdfunded my $1 last time. And then before I forget, before I move on here, I want to tell everybody, bottom right-hand corner, ask some questions. We asked some questions to George Santos, Congressman George Santos as well. And so we're definitely going through those. Tira, this is kind of right up your alley, because one of the arguments that we have seen, especially today, as this situation with the Babylon Bee firing a pro-Trump vice president evolves, is now we're starting to talk about the legal aspects of this. And that, there might be some litigation. Maybe there will be, wrongful termination lawsuit filed, potentially. We don't know. It's all speculation. But is that something that is, something that would be reasonable? Was that a long shot? What are your thoughts?
Florida is where I believe the hiring was done as an at-will state. What that normally means is you can fire anyone for any reason as long as it's not on the basis of something that is a protected class, in effect, not on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. Okay? So because of that, no matter what Mr. Dillon actually did, it's going to be really hard to have unless there's something I'm missing here, and unless, Gavin Max has one of those claims, which I'm not aware of, it's going to be hard for him to do a wrongful termination suit. The fact that it was done on Twitter is unfortunate and probably not very professional, but I don't think that really matters. Moreover, I should point out, because I was researching this, because I remember, didn't Elon Musk somebody claimed he fired some guy named Frauenhofer via tweet. So I think this is maybe not the first time it's happened. Certainly, I don't want to say that, because I'm sure someone's been fired by tweet before.
But Tara, isn't the difference on that? Because we're talking about a political situation now. Somebody that was expressing disgust. Gavin was expressing disgust about one of DeSantis's senior advisors. Does that not make it a little bit different because now
I don't see
it's
that.
looking
I
like a
mean,
politically charged issue?
no, because once again, what is he, is he being fired? If you're saying he's being fired because of his political speech, I think that'd be a hard one to show. And I'm not even sure that would really impact the wrongful termination suit, truthfully, because that's not just because you support someone is not protection, as it were. Doc had raised an issue, and I don't actually see this, but I haven't seen enough of the tweets. He had said slander, libel. I don't think so, based upon the limited number of tweets that I've seen, but maybe he said other things that, rise to that level, but I'm not seeing that either. He said, you cursed, more or less. I don't like what you said. And so, take the B out of your bio, right? And there are other tweets, but I'm not aware that anything would rise to actually a level that would allow for any sort of lawsuit. No, look, it's America. Anybody can sue about anything. Oh, final point. However, there is one thing at the at-will thing. If there was some sort of employment contract, which I don't think there was based on everything everyone's been saying, it's possible that there were parameters for which you could not be fired, but I don't think that existed in this case, okay? So I don't see a wrongful termination suit. I don't see slander or libel unless there's stuff I'm missing, and it's entirely possible. And I'm not sure what you're saying is really speculative. He was fired because he supported X or whatever. Hard to prove, especially on the basis of what we've seen written down in tweets. Thanks.
Okay, but does it make any sort of difference that there was no? And we're going based off of what Gavin said in an earlier Twitter space today, where he said that there was no employment contract. He never received anything. He also has never received a termination letter. So does any of that make any sort of difference?
Not an employment contract. Look, Doc had mentioned best practices, etc. That's fine, but you don't need to have parameters. You don't need to have guidelines. You don't need to have been given anything. Many companies don't have anything like that. An employment contract.
Do you know that? Sorry to interrupt, but do you know that about Florida? I was looking. Different states have different schemas. Florida might very well require that.
Like a parole evidence rule for employment contracts.
No, not like that.
I'm not. No, I mean, I read the Florida stuff. I don't see any requirement there, Doc, but I'm happy to be corrected by anyone who might know more. I haven't seen that as a requirement. It's at will. And, once again, in an at will state, many states are at will, unless it's, for one of the prohibited reasons, you can just sort of fire people. We all know this, right? That's whether fortunately or not, depending on who you are, that's sort of how it works. So you can hire a lawyer and you can try and find some rationale, but I don't know, Doc. I mean, I've never heard that that's required.
No, I agree with you. I didn't see this as a legal case, honestly, but that doesn't mean people are going to sue, and it doesn't mean you can't find lawyers that'll make an argument.
Absolutely. I mean, that's my final point was going to be, we're in America, everybody can sue for anything, and so there might be a lawsuit, but I don't see it as being necessarily successful.
So, Max, I want to go to you, and where we stopped off, or Ben, sorry, let me go to Ben first. Ben, where we stopped off was, I interrupted you because we had Congressman Santos on, and we were talking about the text messages, and more specifically about his back and forth. So this is with Gavin and Seth Dillon. So you were going to respond, so I just want to give you a chance to do so.
I'm sorry, I don't actually remember me saying anything about text messages between Gavin and
sorry,
Seth.
I meant
That's the first I'm hearing.
I meant the tweets. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So I think that was just really us talking about the timing of, Seth saying, you can remove it from your bio, and talking about how the woman who's, I think Evie, she's still on the stage, was right to be bringing up the fact that even though, yes, this, the conversation with Jenna was a separate conversation, the timing does show that there were multiple things going on prior to the quote unquote, firing. But then separately was the whole fact that, as Max has already, brought up, and I don't think we have to go into it more, was that this really did seem to stem from this, these concerns that Max had raised, or these questions he had asked, that Gavin didn't respond to. It seemed like things got diverted to being about, Christina and about the campaign, and that's not really what was going on. But that was all.
Okay, so let me go to Chief. Chief, I mean, I'm looking at this, and you've got a scenario where Gavin's essentially debating a few people at the same time. He's getting attacked essentially by the DeSantis camp. He's having a debate with Max at the same time. He's having a debate with Jenna Ellis, and then his boss comes in and essentially attacks him. Do you think it? Obviously, I know I know you think that what the boss did was unacceptable. So I guess I'll let you say that. But then, separate to that, do you think his response was appropriate, Chief?
So are you talking about the response of how I guess Gavin quote?
Yeah. So let me read it. So Gavin
Yeah.
says, "Hey, Christina Pershaw, what's your effing problem?" And then Seth Dillon responds and says, "What's yours?" And then another tweet says, "Tweets like this when the B is in your bio doesn't work for me." And then Gavin responds and says, "Being accused of things that are false and criminal doesn't work for me." And then Seth Dillon replies, "You can take the B out of your bio now."
Yeah, so my I guess my take on this. So the first one when you said what's your effing problem? Politics is a blood sport, and I believe that from I mean, some people can say curse words are curse words. I personally don't curse, and I haven't cursed in a very long time. But I don't think that in itself is a thing that have read some red flag over. I mean, I think people curse in politics, and I think that some people it's more of a euphemism, I think, in that sense. Like, getting annoyed by people liking a tweet that he thought was, kind of insinuating some sort of, some sort of association with a person who's been like not convicted, but just accused of things. And then when he quote tweeted his boss after this, I think he was just angry because his boss could have messaged him privately. He could have done it very discreetly, but he chose to go onto Twitter and publicly reply saying this. So if you look at it from Gavin's perspective, he's been attacked by people who like tweets that he doesn't like, and then he has his own boss who should be on his side saying in a comment, this is not correct, or I don't like this behavior. So whether he was, I think that he was, I probably wouldn't have quote tweeted the boss, but it doesn't really matter though, because I think that his no matter what, any response or unresponses be like, if you don't talk about, I mean, the boss said something about you or saying I don't like the tone, he wanted to defend himself, and I think either way it's appropriate. I mean, I the boss did the inappropriate thing first, basically. And I think the employee, Gavin there, felt like he had to defend himself. And Seth has in the past said, if you're worried about tweeting something, do it anyway. So I think regardless, there was at a bare minimum inappropriate action from Seth on that. If you want to question whether euphemisms okay to use, politics is full of people who use euphemisms and curses and slurs or whatever you want to call it. The quote tweet, you can say it's not appropriate. That's fine. I think that it was a response to an inappropriate tweet from a boss. So that's my take. But the bottom line is, an employer should have your back. And I know there are some bad employers out there, but I think the majority of them should at least strive to have their back. And something as simple as a public tweet, I think it's pretty clear that was in the wrong. And you can objectively look at this, whether you're pro Santos or anti Santos. You can just look at that and say an employer shouldn't be replying to you and piling on when you're being attacked. Or how about you take a second to actually reach out to the employee privately and try to diffuse the situation rather than escalate it.
Let me go to Max. Before I do Max, I mean, me myself, if I'll be honest,
Dude, Salamani, you've gone to Max like 3 times before you've come to me. Come on.
Oh no, it's because I'm going to like one Trump, then one DeSantis.
But you also have to call him Solomon first.
I know you. If you get my name right, then
How
I'll.
do you say it? Say it right.
Just Suleiman. There's no I in it. You just created an extra I at the end.
Suleiman.
Yeah. But anyway, let me go to, because yesterday I had a lot of complaints that the DeSantis people didn't get enough chance. So I'm trying to balance it out, going 1-1. So I will come to you after Max. Max, I mean, if this was me, and let's say Mario had done that response, my response would have been much more aggressive. Like, why is this guy talking to me and calling me out? I would just smash him. I think, if anything, Gavin was being too soft. But let me see your thoughts, Max.
You want my thoughts on whether Gavin was being too soft to like?
No. So first of all, let me ask you 2 questions though. So was it appropriate for Seth to call him out like that and basically attack him? And then was it appropriate for Gavin and his response to Seth?
I don't really know about that first question. It's a very public.
No,
it's a very
genuinely,
public job.
I know you
have
want to
no real
back him up,
position
but
on
just
that.
genuinely, like, for both questions.
Would I do it? Like
I
probably
think it's
not, but
appropriate.
that's
Like,
not really.
do you think both are appropriate?
I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, like it's a very public thing, and he's doing a tweet, and I guess he could have DM'd him, but that's sort of secondary. Like what he did was, I mean, what Gavin did was more aggressive. And
I mean,
I think I want to make the bigger point that like this whole discussion is pretty exhausting. We spent about 2 days on someone getting fired because his boss believed. Whether you agree with it or not, his boss believed that he was making an ass of himself online and embarrassing his employer. And at some point we need to like talk about more
I mean,
important
I
things.
mean,
And Representative Santos
well,
made that
hold
the
point.
on.
problem is, I know you
I
can.
want to.
One second, Fish. Oh, actually, go ahead, Fish. Go on.
Yeah, no, I
My
mean,
point
I
is,
want to look at
let me make
the.
a point.
I want to point out the tweet on the jumbotron right now, trying to make an accusation, like some conspiratorial accusation about Guo's involvement. My name is in that tweet, so like I want to ask right now.
I think that's fair
Yeah,
for you to talk
yeah.
about it.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah. So what's the deal, Ben? Like, what are you actually accusing us of?
So this is exactly the point I was making earlier, right? That Max raised this question about Miles Guo and Gavin. Okay, Miles Guo, very rich Chinese expat, whatever, asylee, now in
That you've been
jail,
paid
pending
by.
trial. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
most people don't know the story, so that's why I was just explaining quickly. But the point is, Max brought it up. Gavin never responded. I think he should have, right?
That's his
And he
prerogative,
didn't.
whether he responds or not.
Right, and that's fine. That's fine.
So what's the
If
problem
you
there?
can take that position. You can take that position, and then Congressman Santos comes up tonight, right? And Congressman Santos has also been, very much criticizing the fact that Guo has been arrested and is in jail,
That's
denied
his
bail,
prerogative.
etc.
He's a
Again, you don't have
Congressman.
to agree. You're right. It is his prerogative. But the point is, when we're having conversations about these people, I think it's reasonable to talk about the relations between them. And then you have an opportunity to speak back about it. But I think it's sometimes deceptive when there's a story like this or relationships like
What's the
this,
story?
and some people like me or like you know about them, and other people on the space don't know that these things are related. They don't know that Congressman Santos went to Miles Guo's mansion in New Jersey, just a month and a half ago, and
He was invited.
recorded videos.
Wait, why are you telling?
That's fine. That's fine.
It's gossip.
Wait, what?
My God.
He's
Jesus.
never met Miles Guo, by the way.
I
He's been in jail all
Miles
the time.
Guo was paying Jason Miller $1 million a year as CEO of Getter. Now he's back on the Trump campaign.
How
He
much
was
did he
paying
pay
Steve
you?
Bannon $1 million a
Okay.
year. He was arrested on Bannon's yacht. This is relevant to what's going on in our politics and in the party. This is a guy who he gave money to CPAC, right? And so Max asked, or somebody else asked today, whether Guo gave money to New York Young Republicans,
Santos
which
is
isn't a
getting-
smear, because Guo gave money to CPAC. And so me putting that up, it's not a smear. It's me saying, why don't we talk about this? And if your position, Vish, is that it's not relevant, that's fine. But it's a good thing that I put it up there, so now you can respond.
Ben, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Which
so
you
we'll
did.
go ahead and let
Wait.
like people, I guess, decide for themselves.
Can
on
I
that, because
respond,
I-
please?
Hold on.
Sure, Heather. Yeah.
And to be
Actually,
clear, Vish,
no,
again,
Chief,
you should
hold
be
on,
able to
hold on,
respond.
No. Chief, you were trying to respond real quick. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then I need to pivot just a little bit. Go
Yes,
ahead.
the whole point was we went from just a common sense, we can all look at what Seth did and say that was not correct, to pivoting to some attack on Santos when he's not here to defend himself. If we want to talk about specifically going back to,
He's still here.
well, he's a listener, not a speaker. So if he should have a right to respond. And for people,
Oh, sorry. On my end, it says he's still a
no,
speaker.
he's a listener on my end. So yeah, we just if we're gonna pivot on this side point, just focus specifically on what happened, which is what Seth did. You look at it as a pro DeSantis person or not. I know that you don't like Miles Guo. I don't. I know. I mean, but the whole issue we're talking about is with the actions of the tweets. So if you look at the thing objectively, we all look and say Seth did something wrong. I think we should all come together and say what he did was incorrect. That's a good way of unifying, the DeSantis and the Trump people. Look at that, world peace on Twitter, right? I think that's the thing we should just try doing instead of like pivoting to these side points. But
Yeah, I think
I
I mean, sorry guys, 1 second. I mean, the greater question is this. Look, let me go to Vish on this. Vish, I mean, the reason why people are concerned about this, I believe. Oh, Heather, sorry, let me go to Heather on this. because she's trying to get my name right. So Heather, the reason why people are concerned about this is essentially because this looks like, and you've talked about the funding, you've talked about the fact that Babylon Bee was funded by the DeSantis camp, we've talked about the fact that Seth Dillon funded DeSantis. So, I mean, the real concern is this, that this seems like a political strike on Trump's people. Like, is that how it's coming across, Heather?
Hey guys, I know you just came to me, but my dog actually just collapsed on the floor, so I'm going to figure out what's wrong
Oh,
with my dog right now, and I'll be back in a little bit.
No
Let us
problem.
I'm
Sorry about
know.
sorry.
that. Sorry.
So
That's
Vish, same
terrible.
question to you. What's your thoughts on my question?
I think it's totally a political strike. I believe that Gavin was targeted by Seth Dillon, and Seth Dillon is a proxy for the DeSantis campaign or Pushaw or whoever who has been. There are receipts of them being paid, and again, in this very space, the same people who go out there and run interference for DeSantis are the ones here running interference for Seth Dillon and Babylon Bee. I don't believe in coincidences. So I believe that it is a political strike. I believe it is meant to have the chilling effect to keep to let Trump people know that they have no space to express their opinion so long as they're in any of the nexus of private public relationships that exist, such as DeSantis's governor's office, his presidential campaign, Babylon Bee, the supporters, the investors of Babylon Bee, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that it is a political strike, and I think that if that's how they want to play, we can play
Vish, is
just as
there a
hard.
way that I could defend him where you would not like? Is there, because your argument seems unfalsifiable? Can you please? How would you make your argument falsifiable? Like, how can I defend him in a way that you would like not question the integrity of?
Kind of hard to do now, Max.
Right. So your argument's unfalsifiable. Is that's the problem? Like, basically, like, and then it also goes to like, how could Seth have? I mean, I guess you could say he should have done it privacy instead of publicly, but like, other than
100%, yeah,
that, is
at the
how could
least.
he have fired him? How could he have fired him in a way that you would not accuse him of being compromised by DeSantis?
Oh yeah, he could have did it just like how most CEOs do it, which is by picking up the phone, being like, "Hey man, look, your tweets don't work for me. Say it like a man. Do it like a man." It's the method in which he did it speaks. It's so anomalous that the method has to be questioned, and why that method was chosen has to be questioned.
Do you think that him supporting DeSantis's reelection for governor, do you think that indicates anything?
Who supports Seth Dillon? Was supporting.
So Seth Dillon supported DeSantis' reelection campaign. I mean, you
Yeah,
did too.
yeah,
So
yeah. Sure. Yes, I
so
did.
like everybody in this room supported it.
Sure.
Like the fact that he donated money to the reelection campaign, like, do you believe that that's relevant?
Yes, absolutely. It's always relevant. It's a source of cash. Like it's a politician's lifeblood. Yes, I believe that. 100%. I work in this business. It's
Okay.
100%. Yes.
So I don't want to dig too far down into the weeds here, but I want to ask an audience question here. The
Vish didn't
last one I'm
respond
gonna
though.
To what exactly?
respond.
Weren't we going to go back
No,
to Vish after Heather?
we did
I
several
just
times, did we
spoke.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear. Maybe we'll bring you down and back up or anything like that. But I do want to say an audience question that we have, talking about the at-will employment down in Florida, which gives employers apparently a lot of ability to fire people for lots of different reasons, and they have a lot less restrictions. Um, why? What would be the difference, Tira, if somebody were to let's say they worked for a loony left organization or something like that, and they were super pro MAGA, or the other way around, they were with a MAGA organization that didn't want a super lefty working for them. Was there uh, no avenue at all for that employee to push back on that? No legal grounds for litigation?
I mean, if you're fired for your political views.
Correct.
It's a great question. I don't think, once again, I'm just saying, I don't know that it's not, free speech is not implicated exactly because this is not an action by a government, right? It's by an employer. So sometimes when those things happen, it's what you see is people are able to sue, but they're able to sue because it was a governmental entity. They work for the state, they work for, etc. I'm not sure in a private business that would work. Once again, I would love to hear from someone else who has a deeper understanding of employment law, but I think you can do that. As I said, it is not race, gender, sex. There are like 7 categories, and it's not one of them. Most states, by the way, are at will in America. But there are contracts. There's tenure situations. There are lots of situations, unions, et cetera, who have protections. So this doesn't apply to everybody, right? But I think you can do that. And by the way, I just want to go back to the tweet thing because there's a woman in the chat who's done a great job. Apparently Donald Trump fired several people via tweet. So I guess whoever said a real man wouldn't do that, well, I don't know. Donald Trump did. Thanks.
Yeah, that might be a little different here, but so let's go over to the bigger picture here, which is the Trump versus DeSantis situation. And again, like we just read an audience question down there, bottom right hand corner. Please do that. Again, we have a subscriber only space that we're about to be having here as soon as we end this one. We're going to go in here for a little, a while longer. But you got to go to Mario's page, hit that subscribe button. It's only $1. We're going to be bringing audience members up on stage, and it should be a little different. It's going to be a different environment than this stage. We don't have any pre-planned people coming up. But let's go over to the Trump versus DeSantis sort of Twitter war that's going on. GOP Josh, you have been involved pretty deeply in this situation here recently. You've been, dishing out fire. You've been taking fire back. And what I want to know is how effective are these attacks that are going back and forth on both sides? I believe you mentioned maybe that Christina Pushaw, that senior DeSantis advisor that's very vocal on Twitter, may have a Botox issue or something. Is that really an effective argument? Does that change any votes or?
So I really don't think inherently, and thank you for having me, by the way, it is the most effective line of attack for anything, but it gets the attention off of their talking points and off of what they're promoting and back onto them personally. And you can look deeper into them once you have the kind of the baseline attack here. Okay, Botox. Then you go into her foreign agent connections. Then you go into her Soros ties. You use it as kind of a leading in point to the attacks. And then you go deeper further, as many people on Twitter, including myself, have. Use it as a basis point. Then you go down further into the attack, into the, quote, rabbit hole about the person that you're speaking to and the person you're trying to attack against. And especially when DeSantis doesn't have an issue page on his website, you can't really attack DeSantis. He doesn't have any written down policy platforms. So where do you go besides his staff, the ones that are promoting him, the ones that are propping him up here? And so I don't think the Botox line of attack is the best inherently, but I don't think it's a bad stepping off point because when you see Christina Pushaw on Twitter, or how you pronounce her last name, I think I pronounce it wrong, but I'm sorry, not really, but when you see her on Twitter, the first thing you see are the cheek implants and the Botox. Okay, so it's an effective just pointing out an obvious fact before you go deeper into the things that are further down the hole and further down
But
the
Josh,
conversation.
if you don't have substance to attack somebody on here, should you even be attacking them at that point? I mean, because there has to be. I mean, because we're talking about a sitting governor, right? So there has to be some sort of policy or decision that he's made in the past that he can really be hit on, rather than just commenting on the looks of his advisors.
And there's also things with his advisors, and I'm not on a campaign. The team Trump is doing fantastic when it comes to attacking him on votes in Congress, on things he's done as governor, and the actual official apparatus is doing a great job at that. I'm not working for an apparatus. I'm not an advisor. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not on the payroll of any sort of campaign I never have been. I'm doing it as an independent citizen, speaking about what I think is important to the voters. And when you have surrogates going out there that are tied to Soros, are tied to Georgia, are tied to Ukraine, it is important to point out that fact, and it's important to point out the person that's on Twitter as on the most in that aspect. That's important to talk about more than the actual substance of the candidate at this point. Before debates, before the candidate's gone out, actually campaigning, getting the baseline out there, getting the people connected to him that are propping him up to run. Because I don't think inherently DeSantis wants to run really against Trump. He's been a supporter of Trump for a long time. Trump supported him. I don't think inherently he wants to run. People propping him up need to be critiqued as well, and it's not just the candidate at that point. They go after when she was on the Trump team, Kayleigh McEnany. They went after Sarah Huckabee Sanders, right? So they do it, and they do it without substance
Kellyanne
behind
Conway.
it. Yeah, Kellyanne Conway, you're right there. And they do it without substance behind it. We have substance behind the further down the line attacks, but the baseline attacks also are correct, and they just attack the looks and the appearance with nothing behind it. We have things behind it as well, and I believe that's being executed very, very well.
Max, can you respond to that?
I mean, look, Josh is 16. I've said this a few times. 2 years ago, he tweeted Ron DeSantis is America's governor. He deleted the tweet today and then lied and said this is a photoshopped image. And, you know, debating with a 16-year-old, whatever, like, kids say a lot of things when they're young.
I mean, Max,
that they
I
regret.
don't want to discredit somebody just based on their age.
And
so, like,
it always goes back to my age. No other critique. It always goes back to my age. Notice that.
I mean, what's like
if you
so he says? Something? I mean, the thing is, you know, you have to kind of rise above all this because you have 16-year-olds saying falsehoods on the internet, and it's what it is. And like he'll delete it in a few years, but it's not. You know, this is not going to be a contentious matter here. He says false things, and you just kind of. You know, you respond to the allegations, but
Max,
you know, you got to be respectful.
Max, you need to be specific about what's false because I think what you're saying is more worse. So, like, it's fine if you said something false, just like specify what it is.
But Max, is this not exactly the same thing that you guys are accusing the Trump people of doing? I mean, because like you didn't attack Josh on his looks, but you did just attack him on his age. I mean, is that
it's not an attack?
Similar, like that's not relevant.
It's not an attack. It's saying you know you don't get into debates. You don't get into debates over this. It's just an understanding of where he's coming from. This is, you know, it's totally healthy that you have a high schooler who's very passionate about politics. I respect it a lot. When I was in high school, I had a passion for politics as well. I'm very glad I didn't have Twitter. And it is what it is. Like he's saying, like, you know, someone told him that Christina Pusha has ties to Soros. Like that's nonsense. But like, I'm not going to attack Josh for that. I'm going to attack whoever told him that. Like someone lied to him. It is what it is. And you know, likewise, like people having a meltdown about like
that, Max. Has that been debunked, Max?
Doc, like
you believe? Can we get a community notes in here?
Do you? Do you know where all the Soros money goes?
We have to on Jumbotron to make this more clear. We're going very vague with these tweets, but we just put them on Jumbotron if you have a problem with it.
The whole foreign agent thing, it's disappointing because, you know, for a very long time, I defended President Trump from the nonsense Russia collusion conspiracy theories. And then I see like some of his strongest supporters turn around and have these insane conspiracy theories about foreign agent because a lot of people don't really know what a foreign agent is. She was an unregistered
foreign agent, Max. That's a fact.
Right. So like Susie Wiles, registered foreign agent. Paul Manafort, registered foreign agent. Roger Stone, registered foreign agent.
Well, they all have to account for that, don't they?
Excuse me?
At least they are registered.
Well,
right,
one
and so did she.
Jail. Should we send her to jail
after the fact?
No, I don't think any of them should be in jail. I think basically what happened is people hear the words foreign agent and their brains kind of shut down because all it means is that you worked.
Maybe
you worked on behalf of someone. In Christina's case, she worked for Donald Trump's business partner Mikhail Saakashvili, also a close associate of Trump loyalist Michael Caputo. I mean, this is a whole lot of nothing, and I think people, again, they hear foreign agent, they think like spy. Like I did have someone tell me that foreign agent means spy. It doesn't. It means she worked for him, and she never hid it.
Let's also be honest. Let's also be honest about the fact that lobbying on behalf of or working on behalf of many kinds of clients, both U.S. and non-U.S., is a notoriously improperly regulated practice that's very common in politics and in Washington. I'm not saying that makes it okay that one or another person didn't register, but let's actually just be really honest about the fact that on all sides of the Republican Party and on all sides of both the Democratic and Republican parties, there's a lot of failure to register going on. right? It's a really big problem, and I think we should just be fair about that for folks who aren't as aware of that. There are probably thousands of people in this country who should be registered under FARA who aren't. It's a really big problem, and it's not limited to one person or party or campaign.
Actually, can I, Nick? I'd like to ask a question to GOP John or Chief, or even Vish. Somebody from the Trump camp. We got
Can I respond to
yesterday.
Ben real quick on that? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't
No,
want to
sure.
interrupt the host.
No,
I'd
go
also
ahead,
like the
John. Go ahead.
opportunity to
Go
respond
ahead.
to Max if possible.
Ben, the reason this is more relevant, because her associations are in an area where World War III is about prime to go off, right? It's the Republic of Georgia. Her sucking face with Zelensky on stage, apparently the day he was inaugurated. The questions about DeSantis, and my biggest problem with DeSantis is his lack of clarity on his foreign policy. But I know why that is. It's because it's Bush's foreign policy. It's a neocon foreign policy. We know this is true because we know who's funding them. All right, we know, okay? So let's
How
stop
do you know?
pretending that her relationships are somehow irrelevant and just part of a larger mass or a population of people that are in D.C. trying to get money flowing one way or the other.
Dr. Malibu, you post that image of you like to post images of like Jeb Bush standing near DeSantis at the inauguration. You like to post these images a lot, and you
Yes,
whip up
because
all
I
these.
think the relationship of Jeb Bush, the former governor of Florida, and the opponent who was mocked and ridiculed by Trump in 2016 is relevant, Max.
Dr. Malibu, do you think it's inappropriate for a former governor of Florida to attend the Florida gubernatorial
I think
inauguration?
it's inappropriate for a governor who owes his office to the endorsee, the president.
You're changing the
to run
subject,
against him
Dr. Malibu.
After
Please.
5 years,
Dr. Malibu.
He
Dr.
quit
Malibu,
Congress too. He's a quitter. He's following the money. That's why he's not announcing his
Malibu,
positions.
would you say
he's not
that
a serious candidate, and neither are you?
Okay, so Dr. Malibu, you're saying that it is inappropriate for the former governor of Florida to attend his successor's inauguration. Is that right?
I did not use the word inappropriate. I'm simply
you keep
pointing
posting
it
the
out
picture,
and
though.
saying it's relevant.
It's very weird.
It's not weird. Who supports the candidate is
Trump,
important,
there's a lot
Max.
of pictures
Who supports the candidate is relevant. Who they surround themselves as in a primary is relevant to who they're going to surround themselves
Dr. Malibu,
when they have real fucking power, Max.
There was like Barack Obama was at Trump's inauguration, but you're going to say that doesn't count, and you're right, it doesn't count.
No,
anyway,
former presidents and senators, persons of importance, get to go to the inauguration. It's
right, so like former governors
form.
attend governor inaugurations. You're hurting my brain, Dr. Malibu. So I think the bigger thing that I want to ask is, Mikhail Saakashvili has a financial relationship with President Trump. There's lots of pictures over the years.
I don't know who that.
Does that count or does that not count?
Some Russian guy. I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Mikhail Saakashvili is? You attack Christina Bouchard for being a foreign agent. You don't even know.
You know who Earl Campbell is?
Stunning admission,
How about
Dr.
Muhammad
Malibu?
Ali? Have you ever heard about him? There are
That's
people that are around before you were born.
Can you believe that?
Who this guy is.
Dr. Malibu, you have been
you really
attacking
don't want to
Christina
keep
Bouchard for
testing
being
me,
a foreign
Max.
agent. You don't even know who she worked for.
Wait, hold on. We're doing these whataboutisms. Could we just get to specific like tweets that the whole issue was about with Josh and Max, because that was the initial claim, right?
And actually,
do I have a chance to respond to Max when he was talking about me?
GOP Josh, actually, but before you answer, I do want to ask you this question. You can answer both points, and please my question, because I do want to get from somebody from the Trump side as well to answer this. Yesterday, 2 days ago, Donald Trump on Truth Social sent out a truth backing up Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, before the impeachment trial that happened in the House. And a day later, the Texas GOP, majority of Congress, voted to impeach Ken Paxton, effectively based on Texas law, removing him, as the attorney general. So I guess whatever you were going to answer, but I do want to ask that, doesn't that kind of show that Donald Trump might not have kind of that influence within the, specifically, I mean, we're talking about the Texas GOP, right? I mean, that's probably as Trump as you can get in many aspects, but even in the House of the Texas House of Representatives still went against Trump's desires and voted to impeach Ken Paxton. If you can answer that and whatever else you were going to bring up.
So with the Ken Paxton thing, it shows the people who are elected to office, who are most likely or not funded by the swamp, don't listen to Donald Trump. I think that's actually a good thing when people who are elected to office don't listen to Trump, and especially when we don't know the ties to them and Trump promised to primary them. We'll see where that goes, obviously. Really quickly here, Max said that I lied about Christina Pushaw working for George Soros. The Warsaw Security Forum is funded by Open Societies, which was funded by George Soros. It's on her LinkedIn page. She was a member of some sort of council with them, first and foremost. The next thing here is Max. I'm going to be a primary voter in 2024. The primary is in March. My birthday's in June. Ohio law says I can vote. So I can't talk about politics when I'm 16, and what I say is wrong when I'm 16 years old. What changes when I'm able to cast a ballot? Will I be able to talk then? What changes? And because the only critique the DeSantis people have against me is my age, right? They're like, well, you're 16 years old. You don't know what you're talking about. I can cast a ballot, okay? In March of 2024, I will cast my ballot for Donald Trump. Probably in the Ohio primary, I'll vote for Bernie Moreno for Senate. And so why is it a problem that I'm talking about politics on the internet when I'm able to vote next time around?
Josh, I'll
say
say, Josh,
something?
I'll say. So I don't know, very much about you. I've only really been hearing about you the last few days. I'm actually not going to criticize you, because I actually was kind of like you. I got into politics when I was 15, 16 years old, and I think it's a great thing actually that you care and that you're doing these things, regardless of what particular position you may have. I guess I'll just give you unsolicited advice, and I know it's unsolicited, which is why I called it that.
Hey,
There are a lot of people.
at least you have more self-awareness than Max.
There are a lot of people in politics and in campaigns who don't care about other people and who use people. Obviously, I think you already know that a bit, but I'm sort of glad that your last name isn't on here. Not because I'm criticizing anything you've done or said, but because you're young enough to be taken advantage of, and even adults can be taken advantage of. And as you continue in politics, I really hope that you are skeptical of everyone around you and trust your gut if things feel off. Because not everybody in this space, no matter what team they're on or claim to be on, is a good person. And I just want to leave you with that because you're young and I don't want anyone to screw things up for you or mistreat you, regardless of who you're going to vote for in 2024.
Well, I really appreciate that. And on the point of an adult being taken advantage of, Max has told me he's not paid to say what he says about DeSantis. I think that's being taken advantage of pretty widely there.
So what do you mean by that? You mean you think he's not? He is being paid, but is saying he's not?
Either that or he's being used by the DeSantis campaign. It's like, oh, you're helping us out, and he said on a space yesterday he was 150 years old. All right, you guys not taken seriously.
Josh, did you just accuse the guy of lying?
I think I've done that plenty of times. I don't think this is a new accusation.
But see, this is the problem. Yesterday I heard you speak on the chat on the space, saying what you were saying about Christina, about her Botox and so on. You're 16 years old. Why are you bullying a woman? You think this is a good start for you?
I don't believe I said a lie or an inconsistency. I believe I've been pretty consistent, and I haven't said a lie about anyone. I don't think I've lied or said anything.
It was inappropriate for you to speak like that about a woman. I don't care how much Botox you may have. You're 16 years old and you shouldn't be doing that. Right now, you just told me.
People make fun of Trump.
Yeah, so
I don't.
We're way too
getting annoying to me, right? Like,
yeah.
How many times you guys crying about him saying something to Christina and you're all piling on him and keep on mentioning his age? Like, can you guys like grow?
No, I think what Evie's getting at.
Can I ask a question to the space?
One second. So you can jump in and disagree with me, Ben. Straight. Let me just finish my point. So you can disagree with his positions. You can basically refute his points. You can't be crying at him and saying, "Oh, he's bullying," or "He's doing wrong," or "You're only 16." That's irrelevant. I'm thoroughly impressed with it. Well, I'd say you're trying to bully. Then he could use the same argument again. You're trying to bully him. So Evie, this whole like feminist liberalist argument about bullying women is just ridiculous.
Actually, I'm not a feminist.
No one buys it. You just look ridiculous when you say it.
I don't.
Josh,
this
what I'm
is the problem we have on the Trump side.
I'm not on the Trump side. I'm not on the Trump side. I'm just against this liberal left.
But I am. I am.
How are you on the Trump side if you're such a liberal lefty?
Excuse me?
I said, how are you on the Trump side when the only thing I ever hear you on the space is,
sorry, I was born and raised in a communist country, so trust me.
No, but all I'm hearing you talk about.
I don't care. I don't care what you hear. You also said when a Republican gets my name right, like I didn't understand that either. So
that was a joke. That was a joke, Evie. You probably don't have a sense of humor.
Maybe it's a cultural thing. But what I'm telling you,
Well,
we have a problem. Gavin Wax
no, but
bullies
I'm trying to
people.
say your
Josh is
argument is
16
a
and is bullying
liberal.
people,
Your
and this is
argument about
not okay.
feminism is a liberal
I
leftist
am not a
Western problem.
feminist. I do not believe in feminism.
All I've heard you
I
talk
believe
about
in
is women,
individuals.
women, women. Don't say this to women. Don't say that to women. Leave the kid
That's
alone.
that's
And refute his specific point.
that's not what I said. Maybe you're a liberal, and that's what you want to
Sure,
hear. That is
Can I
absolutely
ask a
not what I
question
said.
to her?
Yeah, go ahead.
Giga
Go ahead.
All right, I
Chad,
have a
Josh.
question. So you're so anti-women and anti-bullying women, so to speak. All right. She can control her looks. Fun fact: I cannot control when I was born. So how is it different between you bullying me because I'm 16 years old
I'm
and
not
talking about
bullying
me
you.
because I'm
No,
16? She
I'm
can
not.
control her looks.
By
You
all
keep
means,
talking
I
down
want
on
to
me
see
because
you
I'm
in
16 years
Congress.
old.
I
Josh,
want to see you in Congress, but not by bullying people.
Josh, I think this is kind of. I think me and Evie are. Well, let me not speak too much for Evie, but my impression of what she was saying to you just now was, Evie's, an older woman. We're not quite old enough to be your parents. I'm in my early 30s. But anybody who is hitting like on any tweets where you're, referring to a woman as having had Botox, um, knowing that you're young is not somebody who's for you. And I don't really know much about your politics, but no adult should be goading and encouraging any 16-year-old to make comments about an adult woman's looks and talk about Botox. That is not good. Nobody who cares about you should be saying that that's okay. And if we can't agree on that it's not okay to let a 16-year-old think that making comments about Botox about an adult woman is not an appropriate way to behave, then we've got a real problem with just like basic decency, because
I mean,
we
Ben,
should we should want
that's
better
so
for you than that.
Ben, that's so condescending. But let Josh answer, then I'll add to it. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, maybe the tweet wasn't in the best taste, right? I have a question first and foremost about that tweet. Did I say a lie?
Did you say a lie about what? Her looks?
About her operation, about her Botox. I mean, I think it's pretty
I don't
obvious. You can
care.
kind of
I
tell.
don't care if she had 250 operations. We don't do this. We don't do this in politics. We are Republicans. We don't
Oh my
judge
God, how long
people
have you been
on
in
the looks.
politics?
I've
The
been long
problem
enough.
is we play the same game over and over again. The reason we lose is because we play the same game over and over again.
We
Trying to
don't
change
lose
the
if we
system
don't
is not a problem.
talk about Botox. Failure to talk about Botox is not the reason a Republican has ever lost an election. Let's not go there. There's one thing. It's one thing to say that Republicans can be tougher in many ways, but it's another thing to say that we have to accuse people, quote unquote, accuse people of having had Botox. Otherwise, we won't win elections. Anybody who tells you that that's what you need to do in order to win does not care about you as a
I don't
person.
understand.
The reason we lose is we don't call it how it
Probably
is. We don't say what's the truth because it might hurt someone's
we-
feelings. We need to start saying the truth and talking about what's actually
Josh,
happening.
Including about
but
personal
Josh,
appearance? No, Josh. And you
Josh,
can do better than that as a
I-
person.
Why
But
is
I
that?
would have
Why
an interest to
exactly
hear
is
about
that?
Soros.
Why exactly is that relevant, Josh? In terms of like, we're talking about policy positions, right? We're talking about the best candidate to run the United States of America, right? As a president. Why is it relevant to attack somebody based on their? Yeah, maybe she has had Botox. I mean, so so have a lot of people. I mean,
Who
to be honest,
cares?
that's what I mean. Who cares? I mean, obviously it's a known fact that President Trump had a facelift these past 2 years, and maybe I'll get
Oh, and they
attacked for
never
that.
made fun of
But
Trump's looks,
Who
did
cares?
they?
Like
The left.
this argument is ridiculous.
then-
Like at the end of the day, you can when you argue with somebody, when you fight with someone on Twitter, when you debate with someone, people sometimes say things to each other. We've talked about this. We've talked about the text messages between Pershaw and Max and Gavin, and it's generally that's what happens. People go emotive. They say things to each other to basically now do drama on a space, and 3 or 4 people attack Josh just because he talked about Botox. Like, so what? Grow up. No one cares. He's made the comment and move on
Yeah.
with it.
Actually,
So
I was being
can I
very nice.
answer? Nick asked me a
trying
question.
to
Am I able to
help.
answer that, or is
Yeah,
he
go
going to
ahead.
talk over me
Go
again?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right. So I believe I answered his question earlier in the space, but I'll say it again. It is a great way to draw an attention to your argument if you start with something that's going to provoke outrage. That's how debates have happened a long time. That's how the debates in 2016 had such high ratings, as it was appearance attacks before they got into real substance. As we've gotten into real substance, I haven't tweeted about Botox in 3 days since the original thread went down. I've started talking about the inconsistencies with Ron DeSantis, with his website not having any sort of statements on it, any sort of facts on it, any sort of policies on it. But I've talked more about Botox in this space today than I have in the last 3 days because you won't stop asking me about it.
Could I just say just one more thing about Botox, Josh? It's very
Why do you talk
common.
about it so much? Why are you so obsessed with it? I really
Your
want to
mother
know.
may have had Botox. Like this is adults know enough to not make fun of people for this because it's very, very common.
That is quite low. Why are you
Okay.
talking about as
So it's
parents?
a bit of a childish thing to even say.
It's childish of you to what you just said to him.
Okay.
You said
Look,
I like this.
I wasn't actually
Like,
able to finish my question here.
It's cool if you want to say that to him, but like, don't cry when he says it back. Go ahead.
Could I? I'm trying to like say, wait.
If you use the word Botox, I'm muting you. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
I promise. No, I'm saying like we have like 10 minutes like piling on like just on Josh, and it's I think it's just ridiculous. He did his tweet, and you said your piece. He said his piece. Could we just like move on from this? It's like why are we like piling on him on Josh for like 10 minutes, going after him, and then using age as
The honorable
it
DeSantis
just
to
seems
go.
so trivial and so like juvenile. Like the ways that these we're adults here. Josh may not be an adult, but most people who are in the space are adults. So we should just be moving on from this and just talk about actual things, not like whatever this devolved to. But
I
Sure.
can
Okay.
answer.
Well.
I can answer
Really
Okay.
that.
quick,
Well.
can I say?
1 second, guys.
Okay.
Straight after this space, we are gonna have a subscriber only space. You guys can ask us any questions you want. It will be more personal. So even if you want to ask us questions about, for example, why did we have Ben on here? Why did we have GOP Josh on here? Why did we have
Suleiman,
Emily
could
on
I
here?
ask you whether you've had Botox?
No, I haven't. I have not, and I don't mind you
No,
asking the
I'm
question,
joking.
Tira.
In the
I do
next
not
in the
mind you
next
asking me the
space.
question, and I'm not going to be
Lies.
condescending and say, it's because you're a hater, or make some kind of liberal argument against it. Don't worry. But and also, Tira, if you want to ask me that in the subscribers space and ask me more personal questions, join the space.
I'm sure everyone would be absolutely agog to know all about your personal sort of
So join the space.
facial issues.
We'll answer any questions. We'll even answer questions about the psychology of like what was happening in the space, why we were asking certain questions, why we were making certain interruptions, why we let certain people on, why we didn't let certain people on. Like, it's going to be a lot more personable. A lot of your questions will be answered. So join the subscriber only space. It's happening immediately after this space. It's going to be fun. It's going to be more chilled out, more relaxed, and yeah, join it, and you'll be able to ask questions.
Well, there'll be snacks.
There won't be snacks. Food is not included. But if you guys want to mail some food over to me to the United Kingdom, it will be very good.
If we're
And
lucky, we'll get Botox.
I mean, I won't have Botox, Evie.
Amen.
I'm with GOP Josh on this. I'm not down with the Botox. But separate to that, guys, to subscribe, you just press the button on the top and just subscribe. But let me pass it over to Nick. Sorry, Nick, I interrupted you.
No, I will say I don't know if it's Botox or not, but you got to admit Donald Trump's facelift actually it looks really good. He looks great right now. So
It
I'll
looks
give
fantastic. He didn't have too many operations, all right?
No,
wonderful face.
it's wonderful. It's a perfect space. But anyway, so I want to move past this a little bit. This seems like, and maybe I haven't been around in U.S. politics enough, but we're so early before the primaries from what it seems, and it's getting so heated right now. It's both sides attacking each other very viciously. Does it get worse? And actually, this is an interesting question that I thought, and I'll ask Chief this. What happens when Trump comes back to Twitter? Because what came up in this space the other day with Benny Johnson is he said that he had spoken with people in the Trump camp, very close to Trump, that confirmed Trump was coming back to Twitter. So, I mean, what do you see happening once you get that first tweet back from Trump? I mean, do you see him like totally diving straight into this war that's going on right now?
So I know some people in Trump camp. I've reached out to them too, and I've heard murmurs about him returning to Twitter pretty soon. Also, I'll say also with this, when Trump gets back on Twitter, the game will change. We've seen basically Trump off of Twitter for a very long time, kind of just on True Social. And when he gets back on Twitter, I think he will go dive straight into DeSantis and treat it as if it was a primary in 2015. Trump is running for president. He has a couple opponents to go through. So he'll go and treat treat them as opponents. And I think that he'll, go back and get energized back to his roots and say, we got to deal with these people. We got to go and get past them. And I love that. We need Trump to be more, in my opinion, more like 2015, where he was just, out there, energetic, going after people and really going making his case to the people why he should be the nominee. And I do think that, when Trump is going to run and, in this whole thing, Twitter will be used in spaces. I'm sure he'll have some sort of usage with that. Possibly when all the issues are sorted out with the Twitter Spaces, when there's any reassurances from Elon that it'll have a safe and perfect space. But no, I think he'll be using Twitter for good. He'll be tweeting his things out. Maybe we'll be using some attacks like Roboron or stuff like that, just like in 2015. So I'm excited for it though. He'll be on Twitter soon, I think, and I can't wait to see what happens.
I mean, Chief, let me ask this question: like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer, like, let's be honest, Trump attacks, right? And the things that people are calling GOP Joshua, like Trump does that anyway, right? Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And Trump is more direct in his attacks, so he won't mess around. He'll just attack, like, pudding fingers or whatever it may be. Whereas DeSantis attacks, but it's more passive and passive aggressive. So he'll talk about porn stars, but not really say it. So the question becomes, like, what style do you prefer? Do you prefer like a direct attack, or do you prefer like a backhanded attack? That's the way I see it. But how do you see it?
Attack 100%. If you're gonna go after somebody, you say it to their face. You go and you tweet it out. You're not gonna do these little passive remarks like, well, I think DeSantis had some passive remark, against Trump or whatever. Go, if you attack somebody, say it to their face, say it on Twitter, and tag them and say, hey, this is what's going on. I don't agree with you. If I have a problem with somebody on Twitter, like I'll tweet them and I'll say what's going on. So I think Trump does a great job of calling things as he sees them, and I respect when people can at least air their disagreements out directly to people instead of gossiping or or behind the scenes or whatever. He says what he wants to say. If Trump doesn't like somebody, he'll call you out. If he doesn't like Roboron, he'll say, Roboron, I don't like you. And he'll say it plain, and we all know where Trump stands on these issues when he does that. So we need more.
The big
Let
thing
me
here,
go
guys.
to Josh. Let me go to Josh, and then I'll go to John, and then we are wrapping up. Go ahead, Josh.
All right, so a big thing here, and first off, I put it on the jumbotron. I haven't said a tweet about Botox since May 26th, and that's all y'all can talk about. So I don't think it's really my fault here. But besides the point, when you really look at the strategy behind Trump's campaign and the way Trump ran his campaign, it's always been personal attacks, policy, personal attacks to get the guy warmed up, get him fired up, and then get into the policy, get into the facts of the person. And I know I've said this a couple times, but I don't think people understand what I'm trying to say when they keep going back. Well, you talked about her Botox. I did. I tweeted it. Yes, I did. But I really think that Trump's going to go out here, and I kind of want to go into what Chief Trumpster said as well. And he's going to do the same thing that he's always done. He's going to win. Okay, he's doing it on Truth Social now, not to the biggest extent that he has in the past. I think he will on Twitter once he actually can see. I don't know if he knows what Christina Pushaw looks like and what has happened there, but I'll step down now. But I appreciate you all having me on tonight, and hope to speak to you all soon. Have a great day and a great weekend. And remember those.
I just want to commend you. Like, you've been on the stage. I've not looked at your tweets except for the ones that I mentioned, but the way you come across, your elocution skills and the way you've argued is highly impressive.
Thank you. I'm not trained. I'm not media trained. I haven't been trained in debate or anything. I'm just kind of going at it,
Yeah, keep it going. You're doing well. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in that the attacks are going to be very direct when the time comes, because Trump views DeSantis, in my opinion, as his only competition, and it's not that competitive. And what I mean by that is DeSantis has been campaigning for months as he's running for president, but he's not saying it. When he was in Staten Island, I was covering for a news organization, and I went there. And they were actually going through the news organizations and who they were going to let in if there was enough room, as if there was a waiting list. And there was no waiting list. There was ample space. It didn't sell out for lack of better words. So I mean, the excitement is not there on the ground, and their team is managing and micromanaging everything to push his image forward. And that is even making sure, like, hosts of Newsmax that didn't apply in time were possibly held out. So I'm just saying that they're micromanaging everything on this. And for the comeback lines of Ron DeSantis, I think that they're not going to be so immediate and on the spot, because they have to wait for Seth Dillon and the Babylon Bee to write those for him.
So actually, Nick, just to confirm, do we actually, because I think the last we heard, there wasn't necessarily, like, Trump maybe wasn't going to do a Republican primary debate with kind of the Republican candidates. Do we has that changed? Is there going to be one? Has there been scheduled the first Republican primary debate?
I think that has been so we've heard both. I think Trump threatened not to do a Republican primary debate at one point. We're talking 2 months ago now. I haven't heard any updates since then. There aren't any Republican primary debates scheduled as of now. So I think we're gonna have to find out once those are finally announced and we have dates. So I think it's not safe to say right now because Trump's not really talking about it at this
And
point.
I asked that because I think that's going to be a key measure, right? I think we're starting to get a lot of the from at least Republican voters who not maybe are not as politically active on Twitter and these spaces or just in that political sphere. I think that's going to be the first gauge, right? I think that the Republican primary debates are going to be the really determining factor. And right now, with Trump and DeSantis being the lead as the two primary candidates, with Trump way ahead, obviously. I think that's going to be the key issue, and then how both debate styles handle. And I think a lot of the criticism that people, the Trump campus and DeSantis, which is right. I don't see DeSantis taking tough questions, and I think that's a huge weakness that he has, and I think that's going to be something that Trump will definitely try to exploit as much as possible. And if the DeSantis camp does not fix that, I think it spells a lot of trouble for any possibility they might have to becoming president of the United States, unless there's something crazy that happens during the primaries.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. It does seem like Trump does actually accept. I mean, he'll call on anybody in the press that's sitting out on there, even people that he knows hates him. He'll still call on them and take those tough questions. I don't know if we've seen that from DeSantis yet. Maybe that'll change, but I think that's one of the things that people respect a lot about
Trump
President
also
Trump.
answers the questions better too.
One second, Preston, I'll put you a second. So the subscriber only space is pinned at the top. So if you want to check it out, you can click on the link. We are going to start immediately afterwards. We are going to be going there very soon. Sorry, go ahead, Preston.
I said Trump's also better at answering questions. Every time DeSantis gets a question, he either fumbles it or he goes, well, you look at what we've done in Florida, and gives really no answer, talks about woke Disney, and that's about all you get from him. Whereas you talk to Trump, he's going to give you the straightforward, straight shooter answer. So, another reason why Trump is the obvious go-to.
So, right, guys, thank you so much for coming to this space. It is much appreciated. We will be moving over to the subscriber-only space, so check it out for us. Join the space for those who are subscribers. Those who aren't subscribing, you can join it. It's going to be an Ask Us Anything question, open-ended. So, yeah, come to that space, but much appreciated. Final thoughts, Nick?
So, yeah, if you want to insult Slayman, this is a perfect venue to do it. So,
You can
come in
try.
here and just let it out. So we'll see you guys over there. Just subscribe to Mario, hit on his profile. It's $1 only, as I said. And we'll see you guys in there. But thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.